All right, I'm live. Am I live? Okay, cool. All right. So this is new streaming software. Not really. It's OBS, but I'm using Streamlabs. The chat should be showing up, which I'm not seeing it. I'm not really sure why. It should work automatically. All right, well, what in the heck? This should be shown. Make it visible. What in the... What's up, everybody? I'm about to do the thing. I just want to make sure the chat shows up. It's the whole reason why I'm using this damn software. Yep. It's pretending it's there, but where? Ew. This is silly. None of this is showing up. Alright. What the heck? Alright, settings. Source. Right. I can see the chat right here, but y'all can't see. Alright, whatever. Welcome to Sir Hunt's Reviews. My name's Mark, and in this live stream, we'll be talking about a lot of stuff. House of the Dragon won Golden Globes last night. George R. Martin released a picture of Rhaegar and Lyanna, like the cover for the 2024 calendar. And then I also got a bunch of different topics to make up the title of this stream. And then towards the end, I'm going to take patron questions. I usually start with those, but I decided to switch it up for the stream. Also, there's one person in the chat right now who likes to leave questions in late or type questions in late. And I want to make sure that I do hers last. I'm just kidding. I'll probably do it first because that's the way my memory works. All right. That shit's pissing me off. It's not showing the chat. It's so silly. I could show the chat on the other streaming software. Wait, would that do it? This is so silly, dude. So silly. Y'all should be able to see yourselves talking. There we go. Did it work? Okay, cool. Awesome. Got some confidence because the shit that I worked my ass off on is not working. All right, cool. Right. So, Golden Globe shout out, right? Let me do this. We'll do a screen share. Let me pull up Golden Globes, House of the Dragon. This will work. Just an image. Alright, cool. So let's do this. Image browser source. You can't just do screen capture. It's gonna make me do it old school. Alright. This is silly. I feel like I have to talk about this stuff though, cause it's Can y'all see that? Yo, Streamlabs, you suck. You suck hardcore. All right. All right. Okay. There we go. Cool. Thank you. And you made it all crazy looking too. Yeah, there we go. All right. House of the Dragon. They won Golden Globe, right? So last night, Emma Darcy, Millie Alcock, Miguel Sapochnik, who recently left, was all at the Golden Globe Awards. And I'm not an awards guy. Everybody says that. I sound cliche as hell, but it's the truth. I don't follow award ceremonies. But it's awesome that House of the Dragon gets that recognition because it means one thing for fans. The show's going to keep going. As many awards as the show wins, remember Game of Thrones would sweep house, all the award shows. As many awards as House of the Dragon wins, it's a win for us as fans because we get to watch the show continue. HBO, they'll see how many people are watching the show. That'll obviously attribute to how many seasons the show goes for. But most importantly, Hollywood likes to circle jerk itself in these award shows. HBO is very much a part of Hollywood, so it likes to be circle jerked and get awards. No, I'm just kidding. They put in a lot of hard work and time and money and energy into this series, so of course they deserve to win all the accolades. But I'm just saying, it's a win for us fans because the show will keep going. They're going to put more money into it, put the best people available for the job into the show, all of that good stuff. There's nothing really important to read about the article. I will say that it was sad to see Miguel up on stage and talk about how awesome the show is, and that HBO gave House of the Dragon to him and Ryan, and that's their baby, right? And he's like, hope it was worth it, kind of thing. Like, basically mentioning, like, I hope we did a good job, right? So it just reminded me, like, oh yeah, this guy, the dude that's responsible for Battle of the Bastards, Battle at Hardhome, right? Well, the episode was just called Hardhome, but it was that massive battle. Episodes like that, and then also in the final season, like The Long Night, the only thing I didn't like about the episode was how dark it was. The episode itself, logic aside, was amazing. It was visually stunning. That was one thing I think most people agree about Season 8. Miguel Sapochnik, is responsible for that. So when you see him on stage and he's talking about, winning, just being a part of the show, and like how epic Game of Thrones was, and how he was very fortunate to be a part of this show, it just sucks that he's not going to be a part of it anymore. Like, I did a video on it the other day, but basically the rumors are that he left the series because he wanted to, make his wife, who played a really big role in season 1, according to the rumors, he wanted to make sure she was getting her due, and he decided, hey, HBO, you're not going to do that? All right, well, I'm out too, you know what I mean? And he knows fans like me, or fans that know how successful Game of Thrones was and know he's part of the reason why, that's a blow to House of the Dragon. But Ryan Condal is even though Ryan didn't work with Game of Thrones, he's the heart and soul of the series because he was the one that was picked by George. So nothing against Miguel, nothing against his wife, Alex, nothing. I think she's beautiful. That's not just it. The rumors that were her ideas in the show, obviously Miguel knows his wife is beautiful, but the rumors for what she's responsible for, she did an amazing job. She put a lot of work in it too, right? So it's not to throw shame on them, but it is like, it's not too much sweat, because it would be one thing if we lost both of them, right? We just lost Miguel, who's a major part of the series, but like I was saying, we still have Ryan, who's the fanboy that wrote all of the most exciting things, that when you're watching, you get callbacks from the books, right? So, like, I don't know how to make it sound like I'm not trying to poop on Miguel. I'm not. I'm glad we still have Ryan, right? But it was really cool to get to see Emma and Millie at the award ceremony, too. There was that video where Millie was buzzing, right? Miguel was buzzing too. Emma was nervous. I seen where they said in the interview where they're like, I'm just a kid who feels like I'm not supposed to be here. I literally went, oh, damn. That's how I would feel, right? But yeah, so no, it was cool to get to see them do something like that. And they weren't expecting to win. So that's why Mills, I don't want to say this, I don't know these people, right? But it looked like she was having a really good time, we'll say that, right? And the reason why is because they didn't expect to win, so it was really cool, right? Obviously, there was a couple of actors that got snubbed on the show, but they were up against massive talents, right? Like, for instance, if I'm not mistaken, Zendaya was the one that took the award from Emma. Like, obviously, Emma probably would have liked to win, but they probably recognized, Zendaya, this is a lot. It's hard. It's massive talent that we're going up against here, right? But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that. What I'm going to do now is figure out how to remove the window capture, right? Okay, so that was easy. And then I'm going to do this. All right. So, y'all should still be able to see the chat over this. One of the things that I do in my videos, and I need to get way better about it, not get way better about it, I need to just stop being lazy and do it, is naming the people whose art I'm using. Because literally, like, it actually makes the aesthetics of the video look better. And also, they put a lot of time and energy into it, and I feel like my laziness, shouldn't really do, Anyway, the first topic that I want to talk about is the Doom of Valyria, right? I wanted to talk about the calendar thing as well, but I need to make a thumbnail for that. So I'll do that live before, you know, I discussed that. But I do have a bunch of notes on that too because it's really cool. It's either so like the actual. Let me get rid of this real quick so you can see me. The actual calendar thing that we see is Rhaegar and Lyanna for sure, right? Really cool to see Rhaegar in the background. He's depressed. He's somber. So the dude who drew that, Justin Sweet, was probably, well, he was for sure commissioned by George, but George probably mentioned, like, if this Justin Sweet dude didn't actually read the books, he probably mentioned, like, oh, Rhaegar's known to be melancholic and sad, right? I haven't announced it officially yet, but he suffers from dragon dreams. These were George's words to the artist, if I had to guess, because he presented Rhaegar in a perfect light. I'll talk about that in a second. It looks like it was obviously Lyanna standing on a weirwood tree. There's no weirwood trees. Actually, there is a weirwood tree at Harrenhal. So the backdrop is probably Harrenhal, right? That's the tree that Daemon slashed, 13 times or something, waiting for Aemon to show up right before they have the big battle above the God's Eye. But it could also be the Isle of Faces. Main reason being is because Howland Reed, or at least you find out this through Bran's POV, right? Bran is told by Mira. I think he's told, I think it's in, is it in the Storm of Swords? I can't remember, but that's besides the point, right? So she tells Bran that a Cranogman during the year of the Fall Spring, which is called the Fall Spring because everybody thought winter was over, springtime was coming, right? But then winter came right after that, right? So in the year of the Fall Spring, there was a Cranogman who went to the Isle of Faces and spent a year there. I said I was going to wait to talk about the calendar thing, but here I am doing it, not showing a picture of the calendar thing. So let me do this. Let me bring the... George tweeted a huge, or Facebooked rather, a huge high-resolution image of it. So let me pull that up for y'all. Literally right now. Just give me 1 second. Here we go. All right. Window capture settings, window. The Facebook window. You gonna tell me I can't pull up the Facebook window? Oh, okay, cool. All right. So this is what I was saying, right? So that looks potentially like it's Harrenhal, although the woodedness behind it made me think Isle of Faces, right? So I was just talking about how Howland Reed, you don't get it confirmed. She just says a Cranogman, but we all assume it's Howland Reed because in that same year, right, we have this Night of the Laughing Tree. Let me talk about this later. Let me get to where my thoughts are currently organized at first. All right. Damn, this StreamYard. Well, now y'all can see the health of the stream. There you go. All right, let me go back to this. Cool. All right, so I'll talk about the calendar thing. You could see I was excited about it, which was the point. That's why I wanted to talk about it. But, all right, so pulling up my notes here. So we did the Golden Globe thing, calendar shout out. All right, all right. What caused the doom of Valyria? We'll start with that. After I talk about the doom, I'm going to talk about like what it's like being a Targaryen. I'll explain my dragon theory, like breeding theory, and then I'll talk about some deaths in House of the Dragon. So to start out with, the doom of Valyria was likely caused by, well, in World of Ice and Fire, we're given multiple examples. Is there a way to do that, to make my thing smaller? Can I do that? Yeah, there we go, so y'all can still see me. Right? Let me organize my thoughts. I should have ate the damn cheeseburger before I started this. All right, so there's two things, potentially, that could cause the doom of Valyria, right? So we're told that some maesters think the doom was caused by the great houses in Valyria vying for one another. Like, basically, I can't remember the name of the maester. It's important. I mean, it's not important for the stream, but it's important for the point. But basically, there's a certain maester who thinks that too many mages who were responsible for keeping the fires at bay were assassinated. And it's sort of like a game that the great houses of Valyria would play with each other. Like, yes, they rode dragons, right? They would sometimes interbreed and mix in between families, but it's mentioned specifically when House Targaryen left Valyria, they were called pussies by their rivals. Like, their rivals were like, haha, good riddance, you guys are punks, get out of here, y'all are craven as hell, right? But obviously we know the reason why Aenor the Exile left was because of his daughter Daenys, like, having a dream saying, hey, this whole thing is gonna explode, right? But what's interesting is that it's mentioned that he literally took every single person in his family. So every single member of House Targaryen, their dragons, their kin, cousins, all obviously dragon eggs in large number of their wealth, right? And then they also increased their wealth too because they, Aenor the Exile sold all of his holdings in Valyria. What that means is, like, that's George pulling out stuff from ancient Rome. He also, this is something that I've never talked about. I've talked about what I'm about to mention there before, but one of the things that George did is there's this group of Volantines called the Tigers who wanted to, after the Doom of Valyria happens, they wanted to go and wage war against the other free cities of Valyria, like basically former Valyrian outposts where, Valyrian dragon lords would rule over the city but allow the people to, sort of maintain their culture and stuff. And they're like, yeah, we're independent, but secretly you're not because you're held. It's the same thing Rome did with savages and other cultures and stuff that they conquered, is they would allow the local inhabitants to continue practicing their religion and their culture, but ultimately Rome extracted wealth, and they were still a part of wealth, but they had this ideal that they were free. One of the things, right, so you have the Tigers, which is this group of people that wanted to continue fighting in A Song of Ice and Fire, but in Rome, they would have ancient chariot races, right? These chariot races were nuts, right? So we always hear about gladiators would be fighting like tigers and crazy. Like, we've all seen the movie Gladiator, right? That stuff used to happen. In the Colosseum, they would have floors that would drop out and bring up wild animals, and the animals would be starved, and they would attack the slaves, and it was a good time, and I would probably enjoy watching it if I was alive back then. But they also had chariot races, and chariot races, in specific different factions of chariot races, became so powerful, like, George stole the greens from a color. Well, I guess he couldn't say that. I'm not going to go that far. But the chariot teams would have different colors, right, that they would rock. Like, we're the greens, we're the blacks, we're the reds. They started to become so powerful because the chariot races involved money, right? Citizens of Rome would actively give money to certain teams to make them have better chariots than other. It was like football, right? But they would gain massive amounts of power to the point where they could literally throw Rome up into chaos, right? Like, there was this one time where the Greens were rioting and all this crap, and they wanted the Emperor to do something, and they were so powerful, they bent the Emperor to their will. That was just something that I noticed that was really cool. Like, when you, specifically, I learned that from this audiobook that I'm reading. Hey, that's right, I'm reading an audiobook. How is that even possible? That's what it is. Lights up the same part of your brain. I can pay way more attention to an audio. To be fair, every time I pick up a book, I'm watching my children. So that could be why. When I'm listening to something, my eyes is open, but my brain is taking everything in, right? Anyway, I just thought that was pretty cool. We're going to see something like that with Daenerys. She's going to have some stuff coming with Volantis. But let's get back to the Doom of Valyria, right? So, here's something that I haven't mentioned either. The Valyrians, specifically, not the Valyrians, but after the Doom of Valyria, there were some other dragon lords that survived, right? Like, obviously, we hear of Aerion, who raised something like 40,000 people or something, but he ended up getting wiped out and, like, destroyed or whatever. But there was actual, like, other just standalone dragon lords with their dragon. It's mentioned in the World of Ice and Fire, who were killed by citizens of the free cities. That's like foreshadowing to the citizens of King's Landing killing the dragons in the Dance with Dragons, like in House of the Dragon. That's going to be coming up probably. We were told 4 seasons, so that'll probably happen in one of the later seasons. In the Rhaenys moment, right? Why does it make my... Let me lift my camera up so half my face isn't hidden. Oh yeah, also let me show 'em off my t-shirt. I sell t-shirts. Y'all want one? Why is the chat box not showing up now? It has no reason to disappear. Streamlabs, you suck dick. It doesn't even make sense. I did nothing to mess with the settings. So silly. Yeah, like lock the chat box. Maybe it'll refresh. I don't know. Refresh chat. Let's see. All right. So anyway, did it show up yet? No. The Doom is ultimately. Oh yeah. So let me talk about what caused it. Right. So we had certain key mages being taken out. So this isn't exactly explained, but a scenario that I came up with in my head that I sort of created after reading that part of World of Ice and Fire is that because like you hear that certain families are fighting each other and like they would remove key mages as a way to get back at another family. There's probably members of those great houses in Valyria that had mages, right? So you knew they would interbreed with each other, which is something George took straight from, well, seemingly, because in Dune, they do it right? So the Atreides, post Leto II, they rule the galaxy for like 5,000 years. All of the Bene Gesserit are related to Cyana, who has the ability to be psychically shielded from being spied upon by the Emperor, right? So the the Atreides line rules the galaxy, and they interbreed a lot, and it doesn't seem to make their kids look that Habsburg, right? Similar to the Targaryens. That was something that I wanted to say there. But so obviously they would keep the dragon riding abilities in the family. They probably, once a mage, established himself enough to be like, hey, this is the ritual that I need to do. Like, this is something that the fire mages would do, like the rituals to keep the 14 flames at bay. It's like the Targaryens conquered to obviously get more powerful, but ultimately it was related to the magic that was used to keep the 14 flames at bay, which kept the dragons coming out, kept Valyrian. Like George mentions in A World of Ice and Fire, Valyria is the center of the known world. At the height of its power, there's no greater city or no greater power than Valyria, and it's because of these dragons, also these mines that have massive amounts of gold. The location of it, obviously, trade and wealth kind of manifests itself around them, right? They enslave a bunch of people. Let me put this off to the chat. It'd be cool if you guys could actually see yourself typing right now, but what do y'all think happened? Do y'all think it was one? I guess I never said the second way, but do you think the Doom of Valyria was caused by one, mages being assassinated, like too many mages? And those mages, obviously, like in World of Ice and Fire, it said those mages were responsible for killing people. You would assume that had to do with the blood magic ritual sacrifice stuff. Do you think that was the way it happened? Like too many mages being killed? Or do you think it was just bound to happen anyway because it was too much, okay, so the second option would be like a natural disaster. So either they're messing around with active volcanoes. Obviously, something like Pompeii was going to happen, where Pompeii in history is like, this massive, I think it's Mount Vesuvius or something, goes off and then lays the entire area in ash, and like we're still finding bodies. Like there's a couple of petrified people that have been found from Pompeii. You think it was something like that? Or do you think it was something that was more brought on by the Valyrians themselves? Let me see. Can I at least highlight questions from the chat? Does it let me do that? No, it doesn't. Awesome. This thing sucks. Chat box. Why is it not popping up? Now would be a good time. What the heck does that do? All right. So I'm just going to continue on. Not continue on. I'm just going to read the chat myself. Okay. I ate a tuna sandwich before the live started, from John Haymaker. Nice. Breanne Johnson, what's up, girl? She says, I think it was bound to happen. Osiris Gaming, bound to happen. Destiny, too much magic, too much magic, too much power. Osiris Gaming says, I'll get a shirt soon. Nice. They're over on my Teespring store, which is linked in the it's linked on my channel, but like you have to go over to, if you're on mobile, you can go over to store. It also shows items that are no longer available from when I first made a Teespring account in 2017, like when I first hit 40,000 subscribers here on YouTube. I made a 40,000 strong logo and shirt thing way back then, and that will show up for some reason, but that's not active anymore. This shirt, I've explained it a bunch of times. I don't want to explain it again, but this shirt is pretty dope if you want to pick it up. There's a bunch, too. My favorite actual design, I haven't actually bought one. I did all the designs myself on Adobe. Like, Adobe stock has a bunch of stock images that you can pull and change and move around and overlay and stuff, and that's what I did. I didn't draw the dragon out by itself and everything individually. No, I just used an Adobe stock app to make all the designs myself. But anyway, one of the ones I like the most is this one that I did where I took a wizard, and I had a wizard blowing out smoke that formed the long night. And the wizard is blowing on a horn, technically, but I made it look like a bowl, and that's really cool. And I try all the stuff on Teespring. It's expensive, right? But literally everything that's priced there, I only make $2 or $3 off of. I can show everyone my Teespring store right now. Most of the t-shirts are like $25. It costs Teespring $21 for them to make. So the profit that I would make from that is $4, right? So that's how everything is priced on there. I know it's still insanely expensive. Like, this shirt cost me $34 after shipping, which is nuts because obviously I'm not making any profit. It's just how much it costs for them to ship it to me. Also, it took a really long time for it to get here, I'll be honest. But one thing that's cool is that it's extremely comfortable. I've washed this shirt like 12 times. I only have like 4 or 5 shirts that I wear because I have a weird body frame, and if a shirt has a tag on it or a too tight collar, I just don't wear the shit. But this one is actually comfortable. All that crap I just talked about Teespring and how long it took to get here and how expensive it is. This shirt is genuinely comfortable, right? Also, the shirts that I got from my buddies, from some fans over in the UK, this clothing company called Baked Ape, they also make extremely comfortable organic cotton tees. Their clothing is also a similar price point to that, but I think it more so has to do with like that kind of t-shirt costs a lot. Like, if you go buy a blank organic cotton or whatever it is in the store, it would probably be around $20, but you'd get like 3, whatever. Doom of Valyria in the chat. Dennis Sorensen said, I have a 4. I know you do, my man. Dennis, that's how long Dennis has been fucking with your boy, Sir Hunts. That long ago, right? 40,000 subscribers. I reached that after 2 years on YouTube. I think 2017, 2018. I don't know. But that's how long Dennis has been messing with me. And I didn't even read the books back then. I just watched the show a bunch and would pretend I read the books. Now I genuinely read the books. And Dennis has read the books before too. So hopefully you're more entertained now. Hopefully, I mean, I know for a fact I know more about the books. So anybody that, is watching me that likes the books and they hear me talking about this stuff. So obviously, like it got to the point where the chat showed back up. Awesome. Randomly, look at that. You can see Dennis saying, I have a 40K t-shirt. Nice. Is it only showing? That's so crazy that it wouldn't pop up. Anyway. But yeah, thank you, man. That's awesome. So let me get back on track here. All right. The next thing that I wanted to discuss was, how were the dragons created? Oh, yeah, by the way, let me redo that. The art for this image, this is from, I went to Google and typed in Doom of Valyria, and this piece by Tim Durning is one of the ones that popped up that I really enjoyed. So if you want to go get this for yourself or want to go support Tim Durning, go follow him on Instagram. Like I said, I need to get way better about I've in my more recent videos, I started using a bunch of art because I'm talking about the books and there's no images for a lot of the events that happened in the books compared to in the Game of Thrones TV show. And my logic is, if the artist really wanted, it's really stupid. The logic is dumb as fuck, I know, right? But my logic was, if the artist wanted to promote their stuff, write your name in the corner so that everybody could see who did it. And then I thought to myself, no, that just doesn't make any sense. If I'm using something and the file name says who the art is by, I should put that in the thumbnail. This is like one of the things with smoking weed, CBD 100% legal, is that you do a lot of self-reflective stuff, right? So like there was some drama that was happening. There was a couple subscribers of mine who were engaging in talking junk about YouTubers, right? That thought I was cool with. They would write comments that would be like, hey, did you see this person is doing this at the same time as you? Did you see this person is making a similar topic that you are? Or did you see this person made a tweet that kind of calls out your videos? And honestly, I thought I did a really good job of staying away from that stuff. But that person got me, right? And I was like, okay, let me just go talk to this YouTuber. And sure enough, I talked to the person, and we're still as cool as we were beforehand. So anyway, that's what the self-reflective thing does. So the art stuff is part of that self-reflective stuff. You know, another thing that I need to do is stay more on focus, right? So on topic. This is an image of Daenerys holding Rhaegal, and it's done by Catherine Dinger. Let me see if I cannot move this over here. There we go. Catherine Dinger. It's a very, I've never really seen an image like this before, artwork online of her. Like, I'm not trying to hype up Catherine Dinger, but no, it's a really good, it's like a pixelated kind of thing, but it makes it look surreal. And this is kind of, honestly, this is similar to how I pictured Daenerys. I pictured Daenerys having an aquiline nose or an Atreides hawk nose, right? She's got what probably similar features to the royal family of England, right? Because George describes, most Valyrians as having an aquiline nose or a Roman nose, right? That's similar to what this image of Daenerys has. So props to Catherine Dinger. You did it. So how were the dragons bred? Now, this is something that I've talked about a bunch, right? So in short, we have dogs. We have a little teeny tiny Chihuahua, and then we also have ferocious, massive gator mouth pit bulls, right? Or gator head. I don't know. There's like a million different type of pit bulls. And you also have amazing dogs like golden retriever, and like my dog downstairs, a boxer beagle mix, cute as fuck, right? How do you get those when you do genetic research, or you break it down on a molecular level and you realize their DNA is the exact same as a gosh dang gray wolf? I don't know if you've ever seen a gray wolf, but a gray wolf is like 4 feet off the ground, and their arms are as thick as my penis. And my penis looks like a baby's hand holding a fist, all right? I'm just kidding. Massive. Gray wolves in general, huge. How in the heck do we get something like that that's so genetically similar to a Chihuahua? Well, inbreeding. We, as humans, pick dogs, traits, wolves that would be more, like in ancient times, we would pick wolves that would be more friendly to humans. Some of them that would be maybe not as big as their ancestors, and we would pick those wolves, and then we kill the rest of them and only breed. Well, we didn't kill all of them. Wolves are pretty hard to kill. They're still a nuisance if you live in certain parts of the country. But so, like, the wolves that we liked, that were the friendliest with us, we bred them down till we got a Chihuahua. And we bred them down till we got a yellow lab, right? A golden retriever, right? Beautiful dog. How? It's because we just picked the ones we like and just kept breeding those. And that's what the Bene Gesserit, that's what the Tyrant, that's what Emperor Leto II does in Doom. He picks the traits that he likes in his Atreides genome and breeds them. So the Valyrians the Valyrians tell you where the dragons came from. They were birthed through the volcanoes, right? Dragons need a heat source. They're part of fire magic in this world that George hasn't explained all the way. It's one of the most frustrating things, and also the funnest things about A Song of Ice and Fire is that when you read the Dune books, Frank Herbert, the 6 that he wrote, I haven't read any of the other ones. I'm literally, in the audiobook, I'm 8 hours away from finishing Chapter House Dune. So probably 30 pages, 20 or 30 pages to the end of it, right? it's so amazing. Not only because it came out before all of these other books and stuff, so Frank was forced to be really original, but also he's so specific with certain things that he knew his fans would want more of. Whereas with George, the Doom of Valyria is one of the most exciting events in all of A Song of Ice and Fire, and all the fuck we know about it is that the mages, they did some things that may not have been the best, right? And then he'll also write something like, well, technically, the Targaryens knew about it. Like, so he knows how to just mention, right? So it's like, it's frustrating, but it's also, So anyway, Targaryens, when they, 300 years before the Doom of Valyria, when they're, building Valyrian city forts or ring forts or whatever, the origins of them, they started out as shepherds, right? So they were probably nomadic, right? When they're starting out, the beginning of that, they probably were immediately given a marriage pact with the former people, like, because it tells us in World of Ice and Fire that dragons were in Westeros before the forming of Valyria. Before Valyria even happened, dragons were already over in Westeros, right? So when the Valyrians are forming like a marriage with that, dragon race lord individuals from before, they're dying out. They meet the Valyrian shepherds, and they go, we want to entrust you all with bringing back dragons and fire magic into the world, but our race, our progeniture is dying. We have to mate with you, and then you'll be able to control these creatures, right? So that happened. And, they tell us all of this in 300 years, but then you also find out in A World of Ice and Fire that the creation myth and the mythos surrounding the origins of A Song of Ice and Fire is much older than you think. Like, my favorite is when Sam is looking for stuff in the vaults at Castle Black. When he's looking for stuff to information to give to Jon, he finds out that there have been 1,000 other Lord Commanders, right, before the one that they have the most information on. You know what I mean? They're like, that's not the exact information, but there's things like that, events in words that are written in A Song of Ice and Fire that make you think the world is much older than it thinks. So Valyria was probably around from before that. It probably took them longer than 300 years or whatever it was to get to their height of power. But anyway, initially, they mated with those people. They get those unique features, right? Actually, the features probably did. The purple eyes and the silver gold hair probably didn't happen until later because they would only mate with themselves. And the Maesters specifically mentioned if you want to give an animal a certain trait, like a dog, right, you just keep breeding animals with that trait until you get, that's what happened. The Valyrians were probably normal looking. The Dragon Lords before probably were, elfin. They had like elfin features, not like an elf from Lord of the Rings, but just elfin is a word that's used, I think, in fantasy. It's used in Dune specifically to describe this Tleilaxu leader named, I was about to say Sadiq. This is so embarrassing. Scytale, right? So he's described as having an elfin feature. I looked it up. It just basically means like a very, in my opinion, attractive, like Daenerys in this image right behind me has elfin features, right? So those original dragon riders probably had those elfin features. Then they mate with Targaryens. Targaryens over time start to look like that. So that's my opinion why the Targaryens have purple eyes, silver gold hair, right? But getting back on track, they want dragons to do specific tasks, right? When you're running an empire, you can't just delegate everything to a few people, right? So when you're breeding dragons, you can't just breed one type of dragon. Like, there's probably some Valyrians who wanted a dragon that just looked cool as fuck, right? There's probably a Valyrian who wanted a dragon that was the biggest and the most badass of all, right? Black dragons. For the Valyrian that wanted a good-looking one, a pink dragon. Oh, you're a pink. What? Gold and pink tend to run together. Well, I would assume for dragon, right? So Sunfire, the golden, the most beautiful dragon of all time, ridden by Aegon II. We saw a zoomed-out shot of him. There were some people in my comment section that said we did see a close-up of Sunfire. if I ever saw that person in real life, I'd smack the shit out of you and say, stop lying. We did not see a close-up of Sunfire. That is just the dumbest thing to say, right? Anyway, pink and gold are for looks. Sunfire is for looks. The bond that Sunfire has with Aegon, whereas Sunfire's left on a field for a year and then just knows where Aegon is. Aegon's hiding in a fishing village on Dragonstone, and Sunfire finds him, right? With a wing that's the reason why Sunfire was taken out for a year, because it literally had a wing almost torn off. So it'll be really cool, sad, but it'll be really cool to see how they make the dragon just barely stay afloat, because the wing never fully heals all the way. Ultimately, the damage that's sustained in Rook's Rest that Sunfire gets is what makes it lose to Moondancer, because you got to realize Moondancer is just barely big enough to take Bela into the air. But, to be fair, Sunfire was still well enough to fly all the way to Dragonstone, so that may not be the best. But anyway, pink, gold dragons for looks, black dragons, fear and intimidation. They're literally, right? Balerion the Black Dread is known as the Winged Shadow. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not mistaken, because I've read these fucking books more times than you have. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I swear to God, I'm just joking. But that's it gives you like an arrogance, because you're like, oh, I know this world so much, and then I get to go talk about it on my YouTube channel where everybody watching me is going to be obsessed with the show like I am, right? So anyway, damn, all that made me forget. Black dragons, right? Balerion the Black Dread, the Winged Shadow. Drogon is starting to be known as that. Drogon is growing faster than all the other dragons. Like, you could say that it's because Drogon has been outside the longest, but ultimately, in my opinion, in my dragon breeding theory, black dragons were bred for their size and their ability to grow enormous in a short amount of time, right? That'll be something that hopefully gets discussed in either Winds of Winter or when George does another World of Ice and Fire style book, or maybe in Fire and Blood Part 2, because that would be the next history book that theoretically should come out, right? And then also, to wrap up this theory, we have red dragons. Red dragons, in specific, are bred for their ferociousness. Like, Melees, I mentioned, I hear and I see comments a lot where people say Melees is the fastest dragon, and that I should include Red Dragon's speed into my dragon theory. But here's the thing. No. Melees was fast, and potentially if I hear of another Red Dragon that was really fast too, I'll consider it. But there's no mention of Caraxes being super fast. And then by the time Melees is fighting in Rook's Rest, Melees is so much larger than it was when it was known as the fastest dragon, when it was ridden by Balon, Daemon's father or whatever, right? That was when it was known. So by the time it goes to fight in Rook's Rest, when we're going to see Melees being ridden by Rhaenys, it's no longer known as the fastest dragon. It's not the swiftest dragon. But red dragons are known for ferociousness. So on that vein of talking about Melees, Melees in Rook's Rest takes on Sunfire and Vhagar. And you're probably like, well, clearly it died, so it's not that bad. But here's the thing. While being attacked by Vhagar and Melees, it somehow successfully injures Sunfire, rips off the dragon's wing. And also, you got to realize, size-wise, Vhagar is like 3 dragons. So Melees is fighting 4 dragons, right? 3 for Vhagar, 1 for Sunfire, versus just Melees and just Rhaenys. And what's so badass about it is Rhaenys knows she's about to die and willingly accepts death and goes to her fiery fate, right? There was leaks that I was sent that were really funny. It's the only reason why I talked about them, right? Take it with a grain of salt. Apparently Sunfire will eat Melees afterwards. That'd be really cool, because if you go with book stuff, Sunfire would have something against obviously Rhaenys and Melees, because it ripped its damn wing off, and it's the reason why it's forced to be on the ground for so long. So that was really cool. Caraxes, the last point that I want to make for the dragon breeding theory for the Reds, right? Caraxes kills Vhagar. I don't mean like they died at the same time. No, I mean Caraxes successfully kills Vhagar and then lives long enough to pull itself ashore, right? This will be a good point to go back to the God's Eye, Isle of Faces thing, right? So that's just like when you realize Caraxes is 2/3 smaller than Vhagar. It's just like, how do you even, you know what I mean? Like, and then what they're showing us on the TV show is that red dragons maybe will be more obedient, right? You see the bond between Daemon and Caraxes, but then also you see how well Melee's listens when it busted up the floor and flew through the doors, right? That's really cool. Do I want to do the Isle of Face? Let me see what the next thumbnail I have set up is. Oh, you know what? This was supposed to be the thumbnail for the dragon breeding. Damn, that's a much better thumbnail for the dragon breeding, don't you think? This is by Joshua Kairos. Who has done a lot of... Come on. He's done a lot of work for George before. He's one of my favorites. So yeah, Joshua Kairos. Go check him out. I will just use this thumbnail for the next talking point that I wanted to make anyway. Dragon deaths, right? But the dragon death thumbnail that I made is a lot more badass. No, that's for Cersei. All right. So yeah, we'll just use this for dragon deaths, right? So actually, we were just talking about dragon deaths with, Battle of Rook's Rest, right? So one of the more, I think, gut-wrenching deaths that we're gonna see in House of the Dragon, in Fire and Blood, would be obviously the show House of the Dragon. I'm stalling right now. The book is Fire and Blood. Probably not necessarily a dragon death, but the way that the dragons are used, right? So initially in Fire and Blood, we have Vaemon being fed to Syrax, right? So that hasn't happened yet. We haven't seen a dragon eat a person. Oh, well, that's not true. We saw but Vhagar spit out Luke. That she didn't actually swallow. So she spits. The old lady spits. I wonder if anybody ever asked Vhagar, do you spit or swallow? Now we know for sure. She sure as hell does not swallow. She spits, right? But if I were writing for House of the Dragon, I would make the most gruesome death be Sunfire after eating Rhaenyra, right? Because Sunfire is so close to death that it doesn't even have an appetite to want to eat. And when you know that dragons eat a massive amount of food to the point where it's a plot point with Cregan Stark up north. Well, no, that's not true. It was a plot point on the TV show, I think, where Sansa mentions something to Daenerys, but like, how are we going to feed dragons? Winter's here, or something like that. Also, in A Song of Ice and Fire, multiple books. Not in the multiple books in the main series, rather. In World of Ice and Fire and then Fire and Blood, it's mentioned how much dragons eat. And then in Daenerys' chapters, in A Dance with Dragons, we find out that she's having to pay off citizens that are near her in Marine for the amount of sheep that Drogon is eating. And then ultimately Drogon ends up eating a child. But then when Daenerys goes to his cave, she sees all these bones around and stuff. So dragons eat a lot of food. And I literally forgot my point. So for a dragon to not want to eat, it would be pretty close to death. So to wrap up this point, because it's a really weak one, it would be cool to kind of explain that, because in Fire and Blood, Rhaenyra gets her boob cut to entice Sunfire to want to eat her. So if that's explained, it would be more gruesome. Like if it's shown, you don't have to verbally explain it. You can just show how ferocious of an appetite Sunfire has, especially specifically it's mentioned that Sunfire would walk across the field of Rook's Rest, and at first it would eat sheep or like something that was being fed to it by the men that Aegon leaves there after he's badly injured. Like Aegon is taken out for a whole year. He's got burns all over his body. The flame gets so hot that it fuses the metal to his skin, right? Initially, she's living off of that, and then she starts feeding off of the carcasses and stuff. So you see, well, I'm saying she for Sunfire. Sunfire's probably a dude, but, you know. So there's that. Let's see. I wonder why. I think I figured out the thing with the chat. I think potentially what the settings for the chat anyway is that it may have been like not showing for long enough. So let me see if I can't. There's no chat delay. I don't want to have a delay. Does that make more of the messages that are being typed pop up? I just feel like it's more interactive if people that are watching can see their name and the stuff that they're saying, pop up. And I could do it with OBS by itself, but I wanted to be fancy and use StreamYard or Streamlabs, whatever this shit is. All right. So the next point that I want to make is this is just like, so the title of it is like what makes Targaryens so special, Valyrians and Dragons. I think I've covered a lot of that so far. I plan on streaming for 4 hours or for 3 hours. So this is just the first part of the first hour. And I'm making really good time because the next hour will be answering Patreon questions. And they have some topics and talking points that kind of relate to this. And also, hopefully I can stabilize what's going on with the chat. And then let me see if I can't make it bigger right now, since I just talked about it. I don't understand why they would make it so difficult, because I remember when I used StreamYard, I already had an account on it, so I was using it for a while. It just was way easier to use, so that's not the case anymore. So this art is by someone whose name I do not know how to say, so I'm going to just do my best here. Tomasz Jedrzejczyk, right? Awesome image. Go type that in and this will pop up. What makes a Targaryen so special is that they see the world from a place, Valyrians, a dragon rider, right? It'd be like going to Richard III, right? And being like, here's a helicopter, right? I'm sorry, that was a terrible example. Isn't Richard III the dude that they found buried under the parking lot? It would be like going. Let me toil my brain for a second here. Let me pull a deep reference from medieval. It'd be like going to. Isn't it the Carolingian dynasty who, when you cut off their hair, they think they're like Samson in the Bible? Like when he gets his hair cut off, he loses all his power. Isn't that the Carolingians that they like the Carolingian dynasty? Like when you cut off a Carolingian king's hair, he's done. Doesn't matter if he was a good king. If you cut his hair off, he's done. Isn't that It'd be like if you went back to that time period and gave those people a helicopter, right? And then taught them how to fly it and then just dipped. So they would have a helicopter in society for a while. They would teach a few generations how to fly the helicopter. Maybe you'd have to tell them a fuel source, obviously. They'd leave them with some fuel. Leave them with a giant amount of fuel so that the helicopter lasted for a couple generations. Ultimately, no more than like 150 or 200 years, right? Whoever was allowed to ride in that helicopter, whoever was allowed to ride a dragon, would have so much better of a point of view of Earth or like of society and culture. You would think not every single Targaryen, although for the most part, every single Targaryen who's ridden a dragon has not been like the Targaryens that you hear about later. I've made this point before too. It's like when they ride a dragon, like Maegor the Cruel rode Balerion the Black Tread, but Maegor the Cruel is a special case. Maegor the Cruel is given testosterone, a Westerosi version of testosterone, so that he could beat up people that were 3 and 4 times his age, because that's what Maegor did. Maegor was given juice. Maegor had roid rage, so that the first time he was given a sword, he cut a cat in half, right? Bad excuse, okay? Maegor also was never given children. And this is something I've learned in my life, I've had children, and I am no longer I'm genuinely 20% less of a shitty person than I was the moment my son was born. Because you know what happened? I no longer became number one for myself. Like it's hard to say, you put yourself first and you put your kids first or whatever. And there's things that I do that are bad that will go against me saying that I put my kids first. But ultimately, that was deprived of Maegor because of unfortunate circumstances. So Maegor's the one dragon-riding Targaryen who's not an amazing person, right? If you don't believe me, let's talk about all the Targaryen dragon-riding people, right? So when you're from that perspective, it does change you. Maegor is just the one exception to that, right? So Aegon the Conqueror, good dude. You don't hear anything negative about him, right? His enemies have negative things to say about him, but as far as people in A Song of Ice and Fire goes, pretty legendary lad. He's like Charlemagne the Great, the dude who united Western Europe and everybody after him, his sons in particular, and no one was ever able to do what he did again. As soon as he died, it fell apart, and all of he literally united so much of Western Europe that kids are still named after him to this day in places near Hungary and Russia and stuff like that. They still name their kids after Charlemagne the Great. So that's how badass Aegon the Conqueror is. There's still people around Westeros being named Aegon. For instance, there's an Aegon in the worst house of all, the goddamn Freys. The Freys suck ass, but they still use names like Aegon, right? That's how legendary Aegon was. So then you also have, who's next? Aenys. Aenys rode Silver, but Aenys died because he had to poop. That's kind of, but not because he had to poop, but it isn't it mentioned that he had stomach problems or something? But he was still he was. The only negative things about him that you hear are stuff that in that society is considered bad. He liked poetry. No, that's good. That's good. You want a ruler to like poetry and be into the arts and stuff, so they've developed mind and they're not just some warmaniacal idiot, right? That probably. The arts part benefit that Aenys had would have happened to Maegor if he wasn't a second son and then also never got any kids. He never had any kids. He was stillborn, never seen a child of his own, at least that he knows of. He potentially may have had some bastards, right? That's one of the things that's brought up in the Great Council 101 AC is there's this person pretending to be, there's this lady that comes towards the council and she's like, Maegor the Cruel raped me and I have a son. Here's his son, right? The council believed that she was raped, but not that she got a child from it. But it's interesting is that potentially Maegor the Cruel, his bastard son became a blacksmith, and then his son, Hugh the Hammer. So he has that genetic abnormality that Maegor had, and this is why Hugh the Hammer is known for what, betraying, ultimately, being on the Blacks, participating in the Battle of the Gullet, and then betraying them at the Battle of the Tumultan, and then ultimately, dying, right, of treachery, right? He's killed by his own men, if I'm not mistaken. So, that could be something genetically that he gets. It seems like George will take that approach. It's a Dune approach to genetics, where something in real life, it doesn't actually happen. So if, I'm a trustworthy person, my son isn't automatically going to be a trustworthy person. But in Dune, the Atreides are known for being super, to have this repose and this air about them because they know they can do great things, and that's a trait that is genetically bred into Atreides kind of thing. So with Maegor having a deviant gene of being a butthole, that's probably something that's passed off and then becomes way more prominent when the dragons don't have their when the Targaryens don't have their dragons to give them the right perspective, right? So just continuing on about good dragon riders, let's do Aegon's wives, Visenya and Rhaenys. They did terrible things. If you're their enemies, if you're on their side, they were the greatest people of all time. I can pick and choose because that's what I'm doing. I'm going to say both of them were amazing people. Rhaenys, Aegon loved her, so there had to be some good things about her. And then Visenya, she loved her son so much that she was willing to sacrifice everything for him. So I know she's a decent person. She has some good qualities. And then descending from there, I've already talked about Maegor and Aenys. Then we'll have Jaehaerys, his sons, none of them were buttholes. Jerry certainly wasn't. Alysanne certainly wasn't, right? Their sister Rhaena, she wasn't a butthole. Dragon Riders, a Targaryen with a dragon is like the perfect match, because that's my whole point in this thumbnail, is that when you are up from that perspective, it changes you and you're a better person. And you kind of, what place in Russia? Places near Russia is what I said. But yeah, all of the Slavic countries, they still name their kids after Charlemagne the Great. Look it up, my dude. You'll learn something. I'm just kidding. But no, it's the truth though. Cersei. Okay, so the next hour, and this will be fun because I basically just talked about World of Ice and Fire for an hour. The next part by this that I want to discuss, and I gotta move my face because I'm covering up the artist's name. So yeah, we'll do this. I think the chat is only showing people that are channel members, maybe? I'll definitely have to. I promise you I'll have it fixed next time. So anyway, let's talk about Cersei. I don't really have a specific point. I just want to talk about her POV. She's really fun. The next couple of POVs that I talk about are characters that I haven't talked about a lot. I have made an entire live stream on Cersei, but it's over a year old. The most POVs I'll talk about in the live stream, the most common ones, are Jon Snow, Daenerys, Tyrion, the fun ones, right? So these next couple of ones are just characters that I haven't talked about a lot, right? If you all would like, for just a split second, just so I can start timestamping these, because this is something that I wanted to do, we'll take a brief repose, or I just wanted to use that word again. We'll take a brief 30-second break here. Gotta get myself ready for this next segment. You know what I'm saying? I hope y'all are having a good evening. I know, I've been having a good day so far. Yesterday was pretty rough. I was listening to a whole bunch of crying, a whole bunch of, just normal stuff of being a parent. All right. So I hope that was a long enough time for everybody to come back. Going to be talking about Cersei, like I just said. This repeating myself a lot is for myself, so I know if I accidentally skip past the part when I timestamp it, I'll still be in a good range. It's kind of hard to do that because I jump around a lot. So Cersei, let's talk about Cersei for, I could say predictions for wins and winner, but that's not as fun as talking about what's established and what we know from reading the books, right? So one of the best, or one of the most exciting things about Cersei is that when we finally do get her POV, she is almost exactly the type of person that you hear about, right? So with the many POVs that we get in A Song of Ice and Fire, you learn to question the narrator, because when you're reading something from Arya's perspective, it's going to be from the perspective of a little girl. So something that might be scary to her, or something that might be not exactly what it seems, you'll kind of figure that out by pulling yourself out of the, because I automatically assume first-person perspective when I'm reading. Like, even if it's a little girl, that's not something that I can relate to it now because I have a daughter, right? I'm going to be able to relate to it a lot more, but that's just not, it's not a person that I would normally relate with. But when I'm reading her thoughts, I can immediately put myself and assume her roles and be like, oh no, Arya and me would have been best friends when we were kids, right? So anyway, you learn about A Song of Ice and Fire not to necessarily trust. This is something that I hear a lot. It's really annoying because I hear it so much. The unreliable narrator, right? You learn that through all the other POVs, and then when you finally get Cersei's POV in A Feast for Crows, so literally you go the first 4 books without her POV, and then when you finally do get her POV, it's amazing. She's crazy. Like, I remember the first time I read it, which was just last year. Like, I've glanced at her POV before, but I used to pretend to read the books up until I think I started full on in fall of 2021. So right after I read King Killer Chronicle, which is like, I read that shit. I have those books right behind me. I listened to part of the audiobook of the first one, and then listened to the author do the audiobook for the Slow Regard of Silent Things. But then ultimately, I was just in the process of reading and got through the story so much faster. And King Killer is written all from the perspective of Quoth, so it's really easy from that standpoint. And then you get to, like I said, I felt like an idiot for not reading A Song of Ice and Fire. So then when I do read A Song of Ice and Fire, it's what was my whole point in all that? Oh yeah, it's just exciting to read a character like Cersei for the first time, and then now for the 7th time through, right? Still just as exciting. I'm on A Storm of Swords, but often for my podcast on Patreon, speaking of which, you can join for just a couple bucks. You'll immediately gain access to like 24 hours worth of content that's not here on YouTube. There's a couple of episodes I have uploaded to YouTube, but those are really the only ones that'll probably be allowed on YouTube algorithm. There's a lot of cursing and stuff. Sometimes I'll be completely naked while reading chapters. So, that stuff has to stay on Patreon. It won't be here on YouTube. Excuse me. But anyway, Cersei is... What do you... Can you hear me now? I thought Destiny was spamming me. Can you all hear me now? Y'all should be able to hear me now. Might be a little bit too loud. Yes. Sorry about that. Sorry. Is it good now, though? I don't know why that happened. Oh, well, it's because I turned it down. We're good. All right, cool. So, let me move the chat, too, so that it's not covering up my face so much. Don't just shrink the size of it a little bit. Let's put the chat over Cersei's face. But the art, so this picture of Cersei is done by Angie Delissa, and then this portrait of Cersei over here on the left, that's like one of my favorite ones of Cersei because they don't have like the base, the model for the picture, looking like Lena Headey. And Lena Headey's gorgeous, but it's just nice to separate the books in the show because a lot of some of the really good art that you see for Song of Ice and Fire stuff is all based on what the actor on the TV show looks like. And to be honest, Daenerys is not exactly... Emilia Clarke is one of the most beautiful women in the world, if not the most beautiful, right? Next to Zendaya. And I don't feel like listing all of the beautiful women's, right? But there's a lot of them, right? I just don't picture that as how Daenerys looks because in the Song of Ice and Fire books, Daenerys is a 12-year-old little girl. So when you're reading that and you realize, oh, okay, this is like a little kid, right? You just don't picture someone like Emilia Clarke who's this beautiful woman, right? So that's what I mean. But I really like that picture, and that's done by Aurora Folney. I think I said that right. But anyway, Cersei is one of the best POVs to read, in my opinion, because George had to do something for the fact that Jon is not in this book, right? And then also, if I'm not mistaken, neither is Breanne, right? And neither is Tyrion. Tyrion is in Essos because he just killed his father. That happens at the end of Storm, right? So, like, in Game of Thrones, I think it happens season 4 to 5 or something like that. You immediately find out what happens with Cersei. Or, I'm sorry, with Tyrion. Because he goes with Varys and he, like, I don't even remember what he does on the TV show, but eventually he becomes Daenerys' hand, right? Not quite what happens in the TV books. In the books, there's a bunch of events that take place, and you kind of get Cersei's perspective, and then you get Tyrion's perspective of like what it's like for him to leave. So Cersei immediately, her first POVs, she's annoyed that she has to be like woken up in the middle of the night, right? Her father just died. She's now the last obstacle that was standing in her way to be full-on reigning monarch for her son Tommen is removed. So that's what she realizes. But also, she gets annoyed very easily. It's because she lives a lap of luxury. And, like, you have less patience for nonsense, like, when you're, that, like, living that lifestyle. But that's not important, right? So, one of the more things that stood out to me when reading her POV is that even though she's crazy and she thinks everybody's against her, right? I feel like that sometimes. Sometimes I feel like everybody's against me, right? But she kind of makes things make sense, and only through her perspective, which is really cool. It's really well written. It makes you wonder, who did George know in his life that was that manipulative, and why didn't he just tell us it was one of his sisters? I'm just kidding. George does have like some. Didn't he have like 12 sisters or something crazy? I'm trying to think of something interesting to say about Cersei. So it's easy to call her craziness as a red flag, to think that she's like the Mad King, right? Because that's what most people get when reading her vibes, I think. From the testimony that I've seen on Twitter and on Reddit and stuff, when you read people's posts on Reddit /Song of Ice and Fire, and they are talking about a theory they come up with, they seem to think Cersei is crazy, and that here's how she's like the Mad King, right? Because the little bit of information we get about the Mad King is very similar to what the thoughts and the patterns of activities that Cersei has, right? So the Mad King cuts everybody off. He doesn't even trust his son. At the end of his life, he thinks that Rhaegar's against him, which is why he goes to the tourney at Harrenhal, because, well, he's smart for doing that. Varys tells him, yo, your son's trying to overthrow you. But ultimately, this is why he does what he does, and it's because, he becomes crazier and crazier. It's like an untreated mental illness. Like, the people around him, like Varys, are stroking his fears, right? But ultimately, that's the biggest consensus that I get that myself. Like, when Cersei's looking into Wildfire, and then Jaime thinks about how, everybody sort of looks like a corpse because they're all bathed in the color green, and like it's so bright, and it's at nighttime. Like, Cersei burns the Tower of the Hand after her father dies. It's like, go back to a point that I was saying earlier about how Cersei feels immediately that her dad dies. She has this task, or this object, that's removed from her path that is clears her way to be the reigning monarch, and she does mess things up quickly, but also things were falling apart, and it doesn't matter. It's one of the things that I was trying to get at, were saying, like, even though it's easy to say she's like the Mad King, and that relates to that theory of like how she's the Mad King's daughter, she's actually more complex than that. And part of it is that the kingdom that she's getting, or that she's given rather, that she takes, it's already fallen apart anyway, because none of her heirs are legitimate, and the one king that was kind of holding everything together, he dies. It's like what I was talking about before with Charlemagne the Great. When he dies, none of his kin are able to hold together Eastern Europe, right? So, or I guess Eastern and Western Europe, because you united so much of it. But so even if Tyrion was the one that was in charge, and Cersei was the one who killed Tywin and fled away, the same thing would have happened. And I think that's why Cersei gets a bad rap. And that was my whole point, is that it's easy on like the first couple of times reading her POVs in a feast, and then she gets a few with Dance. She's locked up. They remove her cell phone privileges in the Dance with Dragons. Like, she literally just has a few because she's in jail, right? And then when she's let out, she has the Walk of Shame and all that stuff. I think she has a few, but not really that much happens aside from her being in jail, getting out, doing the Walk of Shame, and then she finds out she got the trial by combat, and that's when, Sir Robert Strong comes in. Basically, in season... I don't even want to talk about the TV show. I don't know, but I just told you kind of where she's at in the books, right? But the first time you read her POV, and then also the second time, it's easy to be like, yo, she's like the Mad King as a basic level take, or a surface level take, and then it's also easy to say that she's a crappy person, right? Whereas you got to realize, like, your environment makes you who you are, and then also the kingdom itself and the events that happen, they would have happened to anybody. It doesn't matter who would have been the one to get, the reins of power after that. And then let's move on. The next slide that I want to talk about. This is a POV that I don't think I've ever made a video on or mentioned in the live stream. Davos, right? So the art, Davos is depicted as by Liam Cunningham. He's awesome. He did an amazing job, but he's a lot older than Davos in the book. Most of the characters are older, right? So Stannis, I think he's like 35, right? On the TV show, he was like 50s. He looked older than the character who played Robert Baratheon, but that's not accurate. So the art, the biggest piece behind me is, the piece behind me of Damon, that's from my boy Jay Fox over in London town, right? But right there, the picture of Damon. I would move it, but there's so much stuff in front of it. It's the pinned tweet on my Twitter, and then also on my Instagram. I often share it in my stories. But go follow him, request some pieces, Jay Fox art, right? So the bigger piece where Davos is wearing the green cloak, and it's like the main back. That's done by Burton Duran. And then the other piece over here on my right, and it may be reversed, is Chris Dean. And I think you can go to his website and see if you want to see a better version of it, higher resolution, something without my face in it. Davos, like I said, he's just a character that I haven't talked about, really. He is a POV. He becomes a POV in A Clash of Kings in the second book, right? So it's really cool. I think he's mentioned, because you hear about the Onion Knight and what he did, which was basically smuggle onions to Stannis, so Robert's brother Stannis. Stannis is not a POV. Melisandre has a few chapters in A Dance of Dragons. But it's interesting who the show picks to make main characters, because they did such a good job with making Rob character such a dynamic dude. I was blown the fuck away when I realized he didn't have any POV in the books. But Davos does, and that's why he's got such a good. That's why Liam Cunningham does such a good job with him on the show, is his POV. And then also you can tell where other characters suffers, because George hasn't written as many POVs. So Cersei towards the end, you know about Cersei because every other POV that's close to her. So Tyrion has the most. Tyrion has 52 or something like that, over 50 POV chapters, and because of that, he spends so much, the large chunk of that with Cersei. We know her very well, but in the end of her story, her actual POVs, she only has, I don't know how many in Feast for Crows, but she didn't have very many in Dance of Dragons. So her ending, Dan and Dave kind of just had to jump with it. But Davos, like I was saying, he is a POV character. One of the best things about Davos is he is like a underdog, but it's not an underdog. Is not even a good way to put who Davos is, or it's not even a good way to describe who Davos is, right? Like Davos is a character that had such a traumatic event happen to him that he thinks it's so hard for him to think wrong of Stannis, and Stannis is the one that did the traumatic thing to him, right? So we all know this. Stannis had his finger, Stannis cut off Davos's fingers. Stannis had Davos's fingers. He did it himself. He chopped them off because Davos was a smuggler. So Davos, I just mentioned this. Davos is mentioned by other POV characters in the first book before he has his first POV in A Clash of Kings, and you hear that he's this dude who he snuggled with the onions pretty much, but he smuggled in onions to Stannis when he was being laid siege to, right? And before that happened, Stannis is about to die. Like, there's not any food to eat, and Stannis and his wife, Selyse, they're dying. Like, they're eating. I think in the TV show they went as far as saying they ate the bindings of the book because it's made out of glue or edible glue or some kind of crap. But anyway, Stannis brings them onions, saves their lives, and one of the first things that's mentioned or Davos brings them onions, saves Stannis' life, and one of the first things Stannis does to thank Davos is chop his fingers off. He chops the tip of his fingers. And so Davos, and you can kind of see it in the image below, not really in the one where Davos is like on the steering wheel by Christine, but the other one by Burton Duran. You can kind of see it. It's a clutch. He's clutching a pouch, and in that pouch, those are his finger bones. So not only has he never addressed the fact that what Stannis did to him was wrong, but he shouldn't have been in I don't even want to say in real life, because George tries to make his world as real life as possible. Whatever Davos did smuggling wise beforehand, 100% should have been forgiven in the eyes of Stannis, right? Because Davos saved his life, but Stannis still chooses justice, and it explains, you learn about Stannis that way. But ultimately, what happened to Davos was, I mean, like, to be fair, we don't know all of the things that Davos did in his smuggling days, but he's not known as a raper. He's not known as a murderer. You know what I mean? He's known as a smuggler. He probably... Wouldn't it be interesting if we find out some backstory for Davos? Like, he was the one that smuggled, I guess he would have mentioned this in his mini POVs, but what if he was the one that smuggled Varys over to Essos with baby Aegon? Fagon. Everybody likes to call him a fake Blackfire. What if that's something that he did? That'd be really cool, right? It's just... It's sad reading his chapters, listening to his chapters and stuff, but ultimately Davos is one of the best characters, and I think it would be really cool if Liam Cunningham was like the actor who plays him on Game of Thrones. It'd be really cool if he is brought back in for the Jon Snow show, because he's alive, if I'm not mistaken. One of the things they did do, props to Dan and Dave, is at the end of Game of Thrones, they made his one goal to try to kill Melisandre, right? Melisandre. And if you haven't read the books, that probably seemed like that kind of came out of nowhere, because yes, Melisandre killed Shireen, but ultimately Davos, the reason why he hates her is in the books is that, like, she hasn't killed Shireen yet, but ultimately Davos blames her for the death of Maester Crescent, and then also for the death of his sons, because, like, after he takes her into the caves of Storm's End it's not a cave. He takes her to the inner gate of Storm's End. It's how he snuck in the onions. He takes Melisandre to go do that, and then she births the shadow demon that's Stannis, but it goes and kills Courtney Penrose, not Renly. So Davos wasn't with her when she did the Renly shadow baby, but after it happens, Davos notices that Stannis looks like less than a person from when they left Dragonstone or whatever. But anyway, so, like, the reason why he hates her is because of what he saw crawl out of her, his sons that he lost, and then also, this will be something that happens in the books, is she has his finger bones, somehow, that he loses when he's washed up on the deserted isle and then picked up by some cogs that are working for, can I really not remember this dude's name? No, of course, I remember everybody's name. Salvador San, the man. In the books, if I'm not mistaken, Salvador San is a Lyseni pirate, and the blood of Valyria flows freely in Lyce. That's why their whores are so pretty. I feel pretty in the city, right? Cool factoids, dropping some knowledge. But yeah, so this is, I'm checking, let's see how long, 120, and I think we started talking, this is for a timestamp for me. We started talking about Davos at like 108. There's a weighted timestamp through this, but I don't want to do it because I don't know how to. Alright. Let's go on to the next one. Next POV that I want to talk about is, I kind of was just talking about her. I set this stream up really well. I swear to God, I've been working on it for like 5 days. Like, that's why I haven't uploaded in a few days. Also, let me move myself around so I'm not in the middle of Melisandre's face. So yeah, the top one with Melisandre on the wall with Jon Snow. It's over here. That's done by Nicholas Gregory. Looks amazing. Go look up. Type in Melisandre Nicholas Gregory to see the full size image. And then the big one behind me is one of my favorite images. Not just Melisandre, but in all of A Song of Ice and Fire. And that's by John Pakakau, and he did such an accurate version. Like, who's the lady that sings "Running Up That Hill"? Running up that road, or something like that. That lady is who I initially thought. I just saw the viewers drop by like 10, so I'm making sure. I'm just checking now to make sure my audio is not wacky. But the lady who sings that song, "Running Up That Hill," that's who I thought George was looking at in the 80s. And then, 10 years later, when he writes A Song of Ice and Fire, he just describes Melisandre, and he's talking about that lady from Running Up That Hill. But anyway, John Piccaccio does such a good job with Melisandre. She's sultry, seductive, amazing. I love to look at her, but the eyes are the most important thing. And Ghost and Melisandre's eyes are the exact same. Ghost the dog and Melisandre are the exact same. And like Melisandre's hair is described as being real red, not the orange crap that you see in the wildlings, or not the slightly coppery stuff. No, like true fire red, right? And that's what this image captures. It's amazing. So John Piccaccio, really good rendition of Melisandre, and then also really good rendition of what the hell? Really good rendition of Melisandre, Jon Snow, and Ghost at the top of the wall too. So Melisandre, right? Aside from having Davos's finger bones, one of the best things to talk about is that in her few POV chapters, we learn a lot, right? Hopefully she's gonna get more, and it'd be really cool when she brings back Jon Snow, because she's literally at the wall right now, right? Not too far, just a few feet. Like, it's a big hustle and bustle, and there's a bunch of wildlings in the courtyard, and a giant just died, and then Jon Snow's caught right next to that by a group of people. So everybody is out there. Melisandre's out there, right? She's doing her night fire shit. So she's literally right next to Jon Snow. So she's going to bring back Jon Snow. I don't know what the hell went through, and I've given Dan and Dave enough praise in this. I'm going to ask the question to y'all. What the hell was going through their head when they go, hey, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do the thing with Patrick Flowers in the mountain. In the giant smashing him into the wall. I think they did that, but that was like during the Battle of the Bastards or something that happened to a random guard. What was going through their head when they're like, we can't do this? Where Leathers is talking in the old tongue, and then Whittlestick and Cotter Pike or whatever catch him off guard. Like, how did y'all not do that? It doesn't make any sense. It was so awesome. Like, and it's so clear too. I guess maybe their whole goal was, we need a cliffhanger. And to do a cliffhanger, like a book reader, myself, would never think that, oh, they're going to come up and say Benjen's back. I would think as a book reader, just like what John thought in that moment, which is, oh, they're showing Benjen again this early? That's awesome. Props to the show. No. It's a sign that says traitor. And this is rage that I've had built up since 2014 that John died and we had to wait a whole season. That was back before I didn't even have a YouTube channel. I have pictures of my statuses on Facebook of me just going off and calling them all types of obscenities, and I just looked up their name. I remember Googling who made Game of Thrones, and then the Dan and Dave. I didn't even think that there was an author, because I honestly didn't realize that so many movies and TV shows were after books, right? I didn't even think to look up the author. I just thought it was those guys' faults, and I remember I had this picture of this Facebook status where I was like, these people, why did they do this? I literally thought homie was dead, right? So they did a good job, right, in that sense, for somebody who has never read the books. But if you have, you're like, why would they, after you find out that he's going to come back, when you see the big picture, you'd be like, why did they not just do it the way that George did it? Because it kind of is a cliffhanger. But also, Melisandre's right there, so she's going to bring him back. Right? And then it would be cool, like I was saying before I went on that tangent, it would be cool to see or to read Melisandre bring back Jon Snow through her POV. And then when we jump to Jon Snow's POV, this isn't going to happen, but it would be really cool. Hang on, I just got a notification that somebody's at my front door. it would be really cool to have, like, what is Jon experiencing? His first POV back. And this is silly. I used to say this a lot because I didn't know the books that well. I would say, oh, we've never had a character who's been brought back to life have a POV. Well, there's only been one character who's fucking died, who's had a POV, who's been brought back to life. And to be fair, she could just be having a book off because she had a bunch of chapters in A Storm of Swords. And the only other time she's mentioned is in A Feast for Crows. So she could easily be taking a book off, and we will get more Catelyn, Lady Stoneheart chapters. And I said that up until like last year, where I'd be like, oh, Jon, we don't even know if Jon's going to get any more POV chapters because no one else. Well, there's only been one other example of that, and that's a bad example because she could very much get. Maybe that's what's been taking George so long in Winds of Winter is that he's writing Lady Stoneheart chapters, and he's obviously not a woman, so that takes him a while, right? It takes longer to write a chapter that's written from a woman's perspective, but also it'll take even more time when you stack on top of he's writing a female character, he's writing a zombie on top of that. That would be so, and you know he's got to try to do that. Like, so right now in Dune, like, there's this lady Dharma who's having sex with futars. But the only reason why I know that, it hasn't been confirmed, and maybe these comments on Reddit have led me astray, but I was on Reddit/Dune, and I wanted to see what a futar looked like. My buddy Quinn has a thumbnail. He did a video or something, but his thumbnail is the thing that pops up when you go to Google and you type in futar in Dune. His thumbnail is like one of the first ones, but he used a picture of a Khajiit. You know, Elder Scrolls Online. Khajiit have weather if you have coin, right? Khajiits are awesome. I was a Khajiit most of my Elder Scroll experiences, right? I play Elder Scroll Online. I don't play Skyrim or the redone stuff that people. I played Morrowind. I played all the other Oblivion. I played those, right, on PC and then Oblivion on Xbox. But Elder Scrolls Online is like the best game of all time, aside from GTA Online and then Red Dead Redemption Online. So I like games where I get to be a cowboy and I get to go shoot stuff and rob banks and shit in the 1800s, right? Use really old guns. And then I also like a game where I could play as a wizard cat, night stalker, thief, assassin, and go into a magic world. And then I also like games where I could be in real life simulating IRL stuff. I talk about these games like I play them often. I haven't. I've docked. I haven't played them in a while, but in GTA, I've played 200 hours in GTA, like 70 hours in Red Dead Redemption 2, and I don't even know. I want to start playing games again. I don't have time. 2 children and making videos and then also working part-time and going to school. No time for that shit, and I'm really doing all that stuff. I swear to God. So, saying the swear to God part probably made it sound like I'm lying. But anyway, what was I even talking about? Oh yeah, the writing a chapter for a zombie and also a woman on top of that. It's pretty hard. So anyway, it would be cool to get Jon Snow brought back through Melisandre's perspective and then also through his perspective. And then we find out if what they did on the TV show where they made Jon Snow say, there's nothing there. Like where he's basically saying like there's no afterlife. It'd be cool if George is not going to leave it that blank. He's going to go into detail and be like, well, actually, I was at a meal with my father. Like, it's going to be something like what happened with Daenerys when she drank Shade of the Evening. Jon's a Targaryen, right? So when he's near death, and that's another thing, too, is like, we don't really know if Jon Snow's even dead, technically. Like, yeah, he got his throat slashed, and yeah, it's way more blood than what he thinks, and also he gets stabbed in the back, and he doesn't ever feel the last wound. He just falls to the ground, and he says, ghost, right? Yeah, we know all that stuff, but we also don't know how badly he's cut. Really don't know how much blood he loses. You don't know. Like, it's a magical world. You could easily wait 10 years and be like, oh, no, Melisandre didn't bring him back. He just lost so much blood he passed out, but ultimately he's a Targaryen, so he just needed, you just say a prayer over him, and he'll be good. He didn't actually die or something. I don't know. But it would be cool if George had him have an experience to straighten out my thoughts. And for the timestamp, this will be the end of that timestamp that I just did. Timestamp on your mom's ass. Where I come. It's demonetized. Didn't that sound like, it's been 1 week since you looked at me? Laugh together. Well, wait. Cocked your head to the side and said I'm angry. I could probably do that whole song and just make up words that sound similar to the lyrics, but they aren't. All right, so Melisandre. Some of the things we learn in her POV. Melisandre is Melanie of Lot 7. She's one of her earliest memories that she thinks of. Obviously, she's got more, but we just don't know them yet. Is that she remembers being called Melanie, and she's on the slave auction block, and she's in Lot 7. So there's more than, obviously one lot, but she's in this particular group of slaves. So we experience exactly what she's thinking of with Tyrion. Tyrion goes on stage and does a little diddle. Tyrion goes on the slave auction block with Penny, and then also Jorah Mormont, right? So the three of them are being auctioned off, and this is what happens to Melanie of Lot 7. And because it's kind of hinted at that she's a lot older than she is, this is the same thing that happened to her, except for she was sold to a Shai, a red temple, and she became a Shadowbinder, right? So what's really cool, and I know I just mentioned this in my last live stream because I remember thinking that I made a really good point and then went back and watched it and was like, oh, I just sounded like an idiot. But she is a Shadowbinder, and it's not just like somebody who makes shadow demons from using the blood of someone. I would assume she had to take Stannis' blood. Obviously she didn't cut Stannis and drain his blood. No, it's probably something similar to with the leeches, except for it was a soul leech. So she definitely took, that's why Stannis looks so bad and looks like so much less of a person every time Davos sees him, is because he's having bloodlettings done, right? But if that's the case and she's taking his blood, it would add to why the Shadowbinders are so crazy, right? So the Shadowbinders exist in this city where magic is allowed to be practiced freely. So whatever other magic is being practiced is probably pretty crazy, right? Because it's not allowed anywhere else in the world, right? People from all over the world come to Ashai just to practice certain types of magic. Now, in that city, filled with crazy people who are practicing all those different types of forbidden magic, you have the Shadowbinders that, they can do some cool stuff, but what ultimately makes them crazy is that they still eat the mutant fish that are in the rivers, or I think it's the river Styx, basically, right? The Greek mythology kind of, or I guess hell river, I don't know. It's this river that's clearly polluted, right? Because any animals you bring to Ashai immediately die. The humans are affected too, but it probably has more to do with the longer you stay there, the more you get messed up. But the traders, who probably never leave the docks that go there for Ashai's gold, and they bring food because nothing grows in Ashai, right? And any animals they bring there die, right? The Shadowbinders are so crazy. They'll eat the fish, which is the one naturally occurring animal, at least that we know of, aside from dragons in all of Ashai and the Shadowlands. I've been having to do that for 15 minutes, though. I swear to God. So, the Shadowbinders do some crazy things. Melisandre is not just, she's not just able to create shadows. And, even though she thinks, hey, I need to mystique this thing up so that people think I have more power than I do, she also doesn't realize what she's capable of. Because Shadowbinder's magic is increased in the presence of other magic, or so it would seem. It'll be interesting to find out if she could actually go past the wall, but whatever magic is guarding people from coming across the wall increases her magic tenfold, right? So, whatever happens in Winds of Winter, right? This is another timestamp ending because that last one is crap. This will be the actual timestamp before I move on to the next slide. Whatever happens in Winds of Winter, these characters in this part is just something that I wanted to focus on. because I haven't talked about them much. But Melisandre is the most interesting because she's the newest POV. There's been some sample chapters and stuff, right? We get a sample chapter called Forsaken, in which Aeron Damphair, who were first introduced to in A Clash of Kings when Theon goes back to the Iron Islands. He's a new POV, but that's a sample chapter that could change. Obviously, he's going to be a POV, but I'm just saying. One of the newest is Melisandre, and the book's called Winds of Winter, and she's at the wall, and it's going to be amazing to see whatever George writes for either her, her finale, her final in-game, whatever the last part of her chapters are that happens, or whatever the characters around her have to do. Like, she literally has Davos's finger bones that Davos lost when he was on the deserted island. So their paths are somewhat linked, because that's just an interesting detail. It's like, how did she get those? Like, did she glamour Davos into thinking that he had his finger bones? And I just figured it out right there. That's exactly what it was. It seems like how did she get them? Doesn't make sense. But yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess, should I go back to Davos? Let me go back to Davos real quick, just to mention what happens to him. So the last thing that happens to him, and this is really cool, and I've talked about this recently, but basically, he is tasked with going to go see Wyman Manderley, and the whole time he's seeing Wyman Manderley, he doesn't see him. He sees him once, and then he gets thrown in jail, right? He's in this place called the Wolf's Den for a really long time, and every single day, there's this jail keep, whose name I can't remember, unimportant. The jail keep comes to him every day, give him his food. It's decent food. It's not bad food. Wyman Manderley's jail keeper, right, says, "Food for the dead man." And Davos is like, why does he... I get it. I'm going to die. Why is he just randomly sick? Because Davos thinks about all the other jail keepers, and this one is just the worst. But eventually, Davos is brought up to when he thinks he's going to die, but he's not. He sees Wyman Manderley, and Wyman's like, that whole thing was just a ploy, boy. And he's like, I'm going to join you. I'm going to join Stannis, but I need a Stark heir. And Stannis needs a Stark heir too, and it just so happens I know where one is, right? And he tells Davos that Rickon is on this isle called Skagos via this dude named Wex. And you're like, who's Wex? Wex is the squire. Not a squire. Wex is this mute dude who knows exactly what happens to the Stark boys because he hides when Ramsay brings back his 20 good men to sack. Just like in the TV show, Ramsay tricks Theon, and in the books, Theon sends Ramsay, who he thinks is Reek. He doesn't realize it's actually Ramsay, right? So Ramsay is Roose Bolton's bastards, right? Theon thinks he's just this random dude that's helping him out that stinks, right? So he gives him silver, that was the Starks, and then tells him to go out and get as many men as he can to help him come back and hold Winterfell, because Asha doesn't do that. Asha brings 20 men, and she says, Theon's like, what the fuck am I going to do with 20 men? And Asha's like, 10? I need 10 to take me back through the Kingswood to go back to where we're supposed to be because you're so far away from the sea, you're an idiot, right? So Wex is Theon's squire, right? And Wex is... you kind of forget about him until Davos's last chapters, and Wex is the one who tells Waymon where that he saw that after the sack of Winterfell, Bran, Rickon, Asha, the Wildling, and then Osha, and then Mira and Jojen and Bran and Rickon, they all escape in Hodor, and then Rickon goes to Skagos. So that dude Wex tells Wyman. Wyman tells Davos, and Davos' last chapter is him finding that information out. And then in Winds of Winter, we're going to find out about Skagos. And what's crazy is that Skagos actually, like some of the rumors about Skagos is that they're cannibals. And that also they ride on these creatures known as woolly rhinos. They're called unicorns, but they're basically these goat-like creatures that are covered in hair and have these long pointed horns. And that's why they're called unicorns by the small folk. All right, so that's the actual timestamp. Let me move on to the next one because I already did Melisandre too. Cool, so this is Sansa, and my face is right in the middle of the. Let me move it real quick. There we go. That's Sandor up there in the top, but we don't need to see him. I'll pretend to be Sandor. I was wearing a Sandor shirt earlier, right? So that the art on the left, where it's a depiction of Cersei being forced by Sansa to write a letter to her family, right? It's the letter that in the TV show kind of did the thing that's the beef between Arya and Sansa in season 7. And then you find out Sansa's forced. This is the other POV that I wanted to talk about before the last one, before I get to my patron questions, and then I'll jump into the chat, and it'll probably be around 2 hours where I get to that part. So we're right on track. I wanted this to be about 3 hours because it's the longest. It'll be the longest stream that I've done. I might have to, obviously, I'm probably going to. My children are going to be coming up here at some point, so y'all get to see them. I mentioned if this stream, I didn't want to mention it in the stream because I could tell. If this stream got to 100 viewers, I was going to do another live stream. The last one that I did, the person just got her thing today. She sent me a GIF of it, though, like not an image. Here, I can just show you guys. Maybe if she's watching right now, she could tweet me. So, mods, if you see her username is Miss Lady LA, if you tweet me a picture of yourself with the poster or just another one, because she sent me a GIF of it, but she did just get it today. I was going to do another giveaway if the stream got up to 100 viewers, but I'm not going to do that because obviously we haven't gotten there. And the only reason why I'm mentioning is because the next giveaway that I do, which will just happen randomly throughout the live stream, is going to be a painting. That one right behind me right there, the direwolf, that was given to me as a gift by my girlfriend's mom. And she wants to, like, she wanted to see if, like, she'll do a bunch of them because she watches the show and stuff. She hasn't read the books, but she watches the show. She wants to paint, each of the sigils for each of the houses. But she was saying if anybody wanted to buy them. So that would be something that obviously I would put in my store that I'm eventually going to do. But also, she would do one specifically for a giveaway for this as, like, a way for someone to get it, and then they'll see. She's really good. She did, we have a fleur-de-lis downstairs, and then also this beach portrait that's above my fireplace that she did that's really good. She's way better than I am at painting, so, that'll be nice. Like, you could get some actual art from an actual artist. Like, I know I'm an artist, but I'm not that good. She's way better than I am. Like, that direwolf is pretty good. I could get that because that's just hanging on the wall just to show you guys. It's the Stark, obviously Stark direwolf. But she usually watches my videos and stuff. At least that's what my girlfriend always tells me. But yeah, if that's something y'all are interested in, just let me know and I'll talk to her. But I will be doing a giveaway for not this one because this was gifted to me for Christmas. But I will be doing a giveaway for. Probably I'll talk to her, but she'll probably do the direwolf because she's already done that one. She doesn't necessarily know, what every sigil looks like. I'll have to get her copies of it. Hang on, let me hang this back up. All right. So Sansa. I need a bottle of water. I have cottonmouth like crazy, dude. I've been roughing it. Let me go. All right, so look. I know I just made this joke, but I promise you, I'm about to go get a bottle of water. I'll be right back. All right. Oh, I was thirsty as shoot. Okay. Sansa. That is definitely another character. Let me see who's next to make sure I'm getting to my patron stuff after. Okay. I was going to do Samwell, too. That has to be the last one, right? Yes, because that's the first patron one. Okay. So after Sansa, I'm going to do Samwell, and then that'll be the first patron one. All right. So... Wait, what the hell? Okay, just making sure I was still in Sansa. Sansa is a character that I've made fun of her, okay? I feel really bad about that because her TV show version of Sansa is not the well, she's not the best. Not my type of character, okay? Just 3 complaints. And you know it really is the writer's fault. It's not against Sophie Turner. She's awesome. I used to follow her. The only reason why I stopped following her and Maisie Williams and a lot of the cast members, aside from Amelia Clark from the Game of Thrones show, is because after the show ended, they got very politically active. And the only thing they tweeted about was charities and stuff that they're doing. And that's great. But I just felt like, okay, well, they've clearly moved on from the show entirely. So I'll check in on their stuff. Like, that's, like, I'm just saying that because... I feel like a bad person for not still following them because their show, I was obviously big fan of their characters still, but, you know, big fan of the actress too. Anyway, some dumb things that Sansa did was like when she offered to say to the northern people, right, these people who have been living in climates. Okay, so you got to understand, the Vale is not just a northern type climate, but it's also up a fucking mountain, right? It's a treacherous climate. It was kind of... Aside from dragons, the Vale would be one of the most impenetrable castles next to Casterly Rock. Like, the most penetrable next to Casterly Rock. Casterly Rock can actually be penetrated by dragons. Like, we established that in my last live stream. I think it was in my live stream. It might have been in a live stream with Indie Geek, Robert from Indie Geek. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's established that dragons cannot conquer Casterly Rock. The Vale is the second most unconquerable. The only reason why you can do it in the Vale is because you can fly above and land... just like Visenya did, right? What's interesting is that how the hell did I get to talking about the Vale? Let me drink some water in the stall and give myself some time. This is wild. How often I forget my train of thought. It had to be something good, right? I don't know. Okay. So I don't know. Really don't. But I keep thinking Sansa's in the Vale, or she's currently leaving the Vale. What was my point? I think it was a good one. I want to find it. I know I was mentioning Casterly Rock can't be attacked by dragons. The Vale can't be attacked by dragons. Sansa is in the Vale. She's leaving the Vale. She's going to marry Harry the Heir. She's literally, the last chapter, she's like traversing down the mountain. And I actually think, there may have been a POV for her, for Elaine, I think. A sample POV, rather, that had came out for Winds of Winter. But I think it would have been a perfect place to get rid of Robin Arryn, right, on that trip, because he's so scared he doesn't want to, do it. Obviously, Sansa's scared too, but she knows she has no choice. She has to leave the Vale. They're going to die if they stay up in the Eyrie, right? Winter is like coming there, so they'll basically freeze and run out of food, and the way down will get so treacherous, even more treacherous than it already is. So the Vale is another castle. Actually, I think they did a pretty good job establishing that the Vale is up a mountain, right? But they have to ride this rickety box that goes up and down, and like it could very easily, well, I guess not very easily, but it does happen, right, where they'll fall. And then I keep losing my train of thought with Sansa. I don't know. I know my point. Oh, yes. I fucking remember. 3 dumb things about her on the TV show. There we go. Why I didn't like her character. Fuck yes. She tells people that are from that climate that I just spent 5 minutes forgetting my train of thought about. They live there, and they've been through many, many winters there, because she's telling this dude named Bronzian Royce, who specifically, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong down in the chat, but their whole goal is to, like, or their whole family's thing is, like, aren't they the closest ones to the gate? So they're literally right up at the mountain at that high elevation. So they know the routine, they know the procedure, they know how to stay warm, because, they're from that. She tells them to put leather on their regular armor. Really stupid. And like, I remember not even knowing the importance of how dumb that was, because I hadn't read the books in the show, but still thinking, like, this was actually, no, that's not true, because I remember back then thinking, like, oh no, I give props to Sansa. That was one of the things that originally when I watched on Game of Thrones, I was like, oh no, I'm going to give props to her because she's smart. But after actually, and I just was talking about Quinn's thumbnail for the futars. Oh yeah, what does a futar look like? He said they look like a Khajiit, but I think they look a Khajiit looks like a straight up cat. Futar probably, like, not probably, specifically in Chapter House, and I know this is probably just what he used for his thumbnail, is not necessarily what he thinks a futar looks like, but a futar looks like the people from Cats, the new Cats movie. That's probably because like Frank Herbert literally says they have cat faces, or human faces, but clearly cat bodies. That's like the exact quote, around the exact quote, which is they're very distinctly cats, but they have a human face. So they look like the cats, the new 3D cats. But anyway, futars. Dharma's having sex with a futar. Either that's established at some point in the 5 hours left that I have in the audiobook, or people get that from the part I've already read, and I didn't get that, because they just say, Frank hints at the fact that the futar that Dharma's talking to, the futar that is this character that dies, but she has a bigger role in the previous book, which is Heretics of Dune. She has a way bigger role. She plays this person who's supposed to imprint on Duncan, Idaho, one of the 1 million copies of Duncan, Idaho. But anyway, she gets captured by the honored matre Spider Queen, Dharma. And when she gets captured by her, I'm talking about a completely different thing right now. I'll have to cut this out because this is for Dune. This will be good. I'm going to start a Dune channel. This will be good for Dune, right? So she's trying to scare she's a Bene Gesserit, like, but she's a Reverend Mother, but she's not like who they call, what do they call Drade? Drade is now the leader of the Bene Gesserit. What is the leader of the Bene Gesserit called? I don't know. I can't think of it right now. It's not Honored Matre, because the Honored Matre are Bene Gesserit. So anyway, one of the ways she intimidates this Bene Gesserit witch that she's holding captive, because basically the whole plot of Chapter House Dune is that it's the Honored Matres versus the Bene Gesserit, right? So the Honored Matres are these badass. They're humans from the scattering. So when the scattering happens, they basically you don't know. Frank leaves it a mystery. So that's one of the cool things. But they're basically way faster, way stronger, just way better than the Bene Gesserit that we're used to. But then we find out that they are a distorted form of Bene Gesserit that use sex to enslave men. So the Bene Gesserit themselves, the original ones that stayed, didn't go out in the scattering. So Leto II dies and scatters humanity. They stay, right? And they don't really change all too much. They sort of worship, still kind of use religion and stuff as a way to just better their ultimate DNA thing. But their goal is still to prevent, instead of kind of seek out a Kwisatz Haderach before, when they had gotten Paul and then his son Leto. Now they try to avoid that at all costs, but still use the Atreides genes to their advantage, like being psychically shielded from other psychic people, right? To put it plainly, right? So this honored matre, Spider Queen, that's her nickname that's given to him. Her real name's Dharma, but O'Drade doesn't know that. O'Drade and Tag and Duncan Idaho #5 and Mobilla. She's like a super sex. She's like Frank went really horny in Chapter House. It was like never been this much sex in a book. It's kind of what happened, and this is less shocking because there's only 2 books in Kingkiller Chronicle. There's no sex in the first Name of the Wind book, right? But then in the second book, he has sex with Felurian for like 5 chapters. It's insane. You're like, oh, can you leave? No, you can't. No human has ever left before. But guess what? Kavoth, he's so fucking badass, he leaves. That's how badass he. And you know what? People complained about that, but I was like, no, that's just his character. You don't understand. He's been through crazier stuff. Y'all forgot about that dragon, the Dracus that he killed that ate trees. It ate trees. That is such a descriptive. Oh, now I'm going from Dune into Kingkiller Chronicle, but maybe I could clip this too for the page. Kingkiller Chronicle has this creature called a Dracus that eats trees. It's a dragon. It's very long. It's like 100 feet long, and it chases Kavoth and his girl, right? Denna is who he calls her, but we're going to find out she's in all these other things. Rothus, please give us this book. So anyway, that's Kingkiller Chronicle. Dracus is cool. Dune is cool too. That was enough of that. Let me go back to on task here. So Sansa, right? That's why I don't like her in the show, because she says silly things like that. And it's honestly because Dan and Dave wrote it that way, right? They're the ones who are directly responsible for a character's perception. The actor can be responsible too if the writing's good, and that's easy to tell. Like, what it'll be is every other actor in the scene will be doing good, and then, or most actors in the scene that can act will be doing good, but the actor themselves will suck, and they'll sort of carry the scene away and like take down the believability of the show or something, right? But that's not the case with Sophie Turner. Like earlier on, but to be fair, she was like 12, right? But for the most part, when she has a bigger role, season 5, season 6, season 7, season 8, she does a good job. It's not her. It's clearly the writing that was lacking, right? So that's one of the big things, if I ever became a writer, is that I would feel that responsibility because I've watched so much TV my whole life, is that I would feel a big if I wrote for TV, which obviously I would because of the fame and the money, right? Who doesn't want to be rich as George R. People hate on him. But it's like, he didn't start out as a rich and famous dude, right? He didn't ask his dad for $1 billion, a measly $1 million, right? That didn't happen. No, he was poor as hell. His dad was somebody that they called a longshoreman, which if I ever meet George, that'd be the first question I ask him. I've looked it up before and I can't remember. I'd be like, because he always starts out, my father was a longshoreman. What the hell is a longshoreman? I feel like I'd ask him that question and he'd either laugh or be immediately insulted because he always goes, my father was a longshoreman. But my dude, that is the term of something that unless was born in 1940s, you probably don't offhand know what it is. You got to Google. Everybody has a smartphone. You immediately get an increase of your IQ points by like 10 points if you have a smartphone because you can Google anything, right? But I say, George, what the hell is a longshoreman? What does it mean, right? Honored matres fear futars. Yes, because they are hunted by the futars. Why didn't that pop up? Kulnitsky, why didn't that pop up? Yes, but don't spoil anything because remember I've been saying this whole time I haven't finished yet. I know Drade's gonna die because that was spoiled for me, but you know what hasn't been spoiled? I'm not going to say it because someone's probably going to type it in the chat. And I'm clearly keeping my eye on the chat because it's in 2 different places. But yeah, so yeah. We're at 2 hours. This is usually the point where I wrap it up. But from what it sounds like, my children are pretty content. We prepared pretty well because I had a whole week and some change to prepare for the stream. I haven't done a stream since New Year's Eve, which was my birthday. All right. So, this will be one of the last things I mention with Sansa before I move on to Samwell, right? So, Sansa is, for the books, the most saddest character, yes. Like, she cries a lot, yes, in the beginning. And George has even mentioned in interviews that if he could rewrite or if he could change some things, hindsight is always 20/20. He would make Sansa cry less or something. Like, I don't know the exact words, but he's been quoted as saying something like that, right? But you gotta realize, right? George is not just such a good writer that he could write from the female perspective. He could write two different types, Arya and Sansa. And like, when I would pretend to read the books, I would skim Arya's stuff. So I'd read the wiki page, which is a really embarrassing thing to do if you have a YouTube channel like myself, right? Personally, for me, I used to do it. And I now don't... I haven't looked at the Song of Ice and Fire wiki page for any source of information since I started reading the books. I haven't needed to. Since I started making videos and doing live streams, talking about them, rather. So that's been a while. And I used to look at that thing all the time so that when I was doing stuff like this, I could appear to be well-read, but I watched my videos and my live streams from back then, and I would just look like an idiot because I would fumble for stuff. Whereas now when I fumble for anything, it's an honest, occasional mistake, I think, and then also it's because I genuinely forgot what I was saying, right? So Sansa is when you just, like, when I would just hear about her, or when I would just read about her on the wiki page leaves out so much context for stuff. It may tell you what happens, but you don't have the context, and it makes you appreciate the material more, the source material more, for sure, because it gives you the information. It's all right there. It's really easy to read just one page. Take you less than a minute to find exactly what you're looking for. But it's still, like I said, there's so much context. And usually the names that are highlighted, when you click on it, it'll take you to a whole nother page. And I know me personally, I'm not going to read that whole other page because I'll have to get reference for that character, and then this character, and then this place, and then that battle, and what happened here. That fucking sucks. And like, when I'm trying to make videos and I'm trying to do live streams for stuff like that, it makes me personally feel like a dummy. So now that I've read about Sansa's character, literally read her POV 7 times, right? It's amazing. I don't relate to her, but that's not what I mean when I say amazing. It really makes you appreciate the author's abilities, right? So you get Jon Snow, right? Jon Snow, in short, is he's a bastard, but ultimately he gets past that and becomes the Lord Commander, and will be revived and still be the Lord Commander. Probably ultimately choose to go resettle. If something similar happens to what happened on the TV show, he'll go resettle the North that becomes less frost-ridden because there's so many wildlings. That's the big theme in the Song of Ice and Fire books, is Jon's going to have to deal with. That's why he got killed, is because, like, the TV show, he kind of got killed for that reason. They don't make it that clear, but there are so many wildlings coming down. They're having to give Castle Black and Night's Watch land, and it's a big deal to not do that when winter's here, because there's going to be certain locations that are prime for hunting and for growing stuff, and they don't want wildlings who have raped them and killed them, even though the Northmen have been doing that to them for years. They don't want them down there in their lands, right? So that's why Jon got killed. So he's still going to have to face that, and he's going to probably become Mance Rayder 2.0 and take them back north of the wall. But, like, it's crazy to have George write a character like that that's so well established, right? Like the summary that I just said, and then also have so many other ones. You get Cersei, you have all these other ones I've been talking about, and then you get Sansa, and some of the qualities are easily missed when I read it the first time and then the second time. And like some of the things that I appreciate, let me get specifics in detail. Let me draw my brain into perspective here. I'll do the eye close thing so that y'all know I'm not calling. Actually, at this point, I do that so much it seems like I'm just trying to like bait people. Y'all know I've read the books. I don't need to do this. So one of the best things about reading her that gives me a new light, I guess, or a more of appreciation for George, is how, like, this is kind of what they try to do on the TV show. She takes a little piece of something, and then internally you can tell she, like, for instance, when she's talking to Littlefinger, she picks up on the point of Harry, right, being the person that she's potentially going to marry after they get rid of Sweet Robin, right? And The way that the story is set up, I hope we get a Littlefinger POV. We don't have any we've never gotten a POV for Littlefinger in the books. They did a really good job with this character on the show. Aidan Gillen is the main. Little Sandra, it's me. Please come with me to the Vale, Sandra. Please, I swear. Right? It seems like he's basically gonna make it so that Sansa gets rid of Robin Arryn as a nuisance thing. Like, she kind of has to get her hands dirty, because Littlefinger is the type of dude that only works with people that he has something up on. And as of right now, yeah, Sansa's a traitor's daughter, and like, yeah, Sansa's this, and like, she was not innocent, right? That's what Littlefinger has on her. But if he can get her to get rid of Robin Arryn, just like he literally pushed Liza out of the door and then blamed it on the singer, right? If he can get Sansa to do something like that, which he kind of is, because he's setting it up, and I think if we ever get a POV from him, let me make that clear. If we ever get a POV from Littlefinger, he'll probably be behind the scenes making it, like, we'll find out that he's telling the Maester to give, this is genius. I just thought of this shit right now. He's telling the Maester at the Vale to give Robert Arryn certain types of medicine, right? But they're also poison if you give him too much, like sweet sleep and stuff, and he wants him to be calm, and because Robert Arryn has these seizures, right? So on the TV show, he kind of grows out of it, but right now he's still little, so he could potentially be poisoning Robin Arryn and is working with the Maester, right? That is telling everybody, because he mentions it in public, like there's other people around listening, right? When Littlefinger says, give him this and give him that. So secretly, he could be telling the Maester to poison him more and poison him more with this, right? And he's got something over the Maester, and that's why the Maester's working with him, right? That's something we could find out if Littlefinger has a POV. The only person I hope listening to this taking ideas is George. Isn't that the most cocky thing a YouTuber could say? George, take notes, buddy. I'm telling you how to finish this story, dude. Take notes, buddy. I got this. Just listen and you'll finish Dream of Spring. No. But no, seriously. So that would be cool. But I think eventually what's going to be an evolution for Sansa, she gets her hands dirty, and that'll be ultimately what she takes from Littlefinger. Her killing Littlefinger will be mostly her doing, right? Like, she'll have Harry the Veiled, like exactly what happened on the TV show, except for may not happen with Arya. Arya will probably be doing faceless man business, like at the point in the story, because to continue her journey, she's gonna have to get rid of Littlefinger, and that'll be wrapping up Sansa. And I have like just one thing I want to mention for Sam before I get to all the talking points from my patrons, which will fill out the last hour and some change that I do, because I said I was going to try to do 3 hours. And it's still early. It's only 7 o'clock. I'm good. Are y'all good for hanging out with me? I feel like people don't want to watch me pass. It's part of the reason why I don't do them, and then obviously because of my children. But part of the reason why I don't do them, or I've never done them that long, is because I always feel like people don't necessarily want to watch me. But then also, when the show was on, I would have to make my video right after that, so I didn't want to do them for that long. But yeah, I'll keep going. Well, I'm going to finish all the stuff I have anyway, but I'm saying I might try to do like 4 hours or something if y'all want me to, because I can totally do that. Hey, Destiny, nobody's asking you late to the party. Oh, you know what? I figured out several times she's randomly messaged me stuff that'll be really offensive. Like, she'll be like, oh, you used to be fat, or you used to be this. And I'll be like, what? Why the hell did you say that to me? Right? And then I'm like, oh, she probably thinks it's funny when I get mad. So that's probably why she said stuff like that. But that's cool, because you know what I do? I just leave it on red. I just let you see, that I see that, but I'm not going to respond to it, because whatever. Like, she sent me this video of this person who clearly has Downs playing the guitar the other day, and she's like, this is you. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? The last time I played the guitar on YouTube, I mentioned how I suck at the guitar and I don't want to do this, but people were like, nah, do it. It's your birthday and I'm drinking champagne and tequila, right? Whatever. Like I said, it's funnier to me to just be like, I seen it, but I'm not going to say anything. So yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Sam, right? So art by Oleg Kasputin is Sam the King. That's the whole theory. The art behind me is from Magali. Let me move it. It's from Magali Villanueva. This dude is one of my favorite, or lady, or whoever, or they, right? Are one of my favorite artists for A Song of Ice and Fire. But ultimately, I think, I'm trying to remember. I think they did the Fire and Blood calendar, like for this year, the one for 2023 too. But anyway, that's Samwell. One of my favorite depictions of him. Go look up Magali Villanueva. They have the same last name as Denis Villanueva, who is the director for Dune, the new Dune movies. And then the art by Oleg Kasputin. That is just a really dope piece there. It's Sam the King. That's the whole point why I wanted to click on Sam, because I have kind of talked about the biggest, most exciting thing with Sam is getting to the Citadel Maester Bar, when I've talked about that a bunch in several. It's Oleg Kasputin. Why won't it let me move that? There we go. I'll just have to make it smaller. All right, cool. Everything's in frame now. You can see who the artists are. Go look at that up close, though, because that's really... Can I just do that real quick? Let me see. Yeah, look at this. It's dope. Sam the King. But it's a likeness of the actor, obviously, but it's just really cool because I like the actor, too, you know? All right. So, Sam is going to be one of the characters, because Sam has had such a crazy journey. He's going to be one of the characters that survived. Like, he survived in the TV show, so it's easy to be like, well, you can draw conclusions that significant amounts of the characters that survived on the TV show are also going to survive through a dream if we ever get that book, if that book ever comes out, right? Obviously, it's going to be Sam survived a White Walker, which in A Song of Ice and Fire is the most dangerous enemy that we know of, because only one can destroy so many, right? One White Walker and undead themselves penetrated Castle Black. That's so easy. They were taking out the Lord Commander, right? They were men from Benjen, right? The two dudes I can't think of their names. I bet you I'd remember if I stopped long enough, but I don't want to do that. It's a good train of thought that I'm on right now. The two dudes that come back to try to kill, Lord Commander Mormont, Jon ultimately stops them with Ghost and Fire and Longclaw. I guess it doesn't get Longclaw to. Does he use Longclaw on the TV show to do it? But anyway, Jon messes up his hand really bad afterwards. But what was I saying? Damn, that shit gets annoying, dude. And some people watching are probably like, it's the bud. It's actually not. When I get really excited about anything, I'll get really excited about it and then either forget, or if it's a hobby, I'll lose attention to it. Just like painting. Like, I was painting a lot last year, and then doing the live streams to give away paintings, I started painting again, and then I just stopped doing it. Like, once I started reading Dune, I was like, hey, I'm probably not going to paint for a while now. I don't know. You just lose interest over time. But anyway, Sam comes in, this big fat man, right? Jon Snow, I'll just set up, talk about some book stuff. Jon Snow is practicing in the courtyards, and then he notices that Sam is being picked on and being called Fat Fatty, right? I think at first, even Grin, Pip, and all the dudes that Jon are friends with are not friends with Jon, because Jon's such a hard fighter, and it's because Jon is so hard on Pip and Grin and everybody else in the training yard. That's why they don't like him. Like, Jon basically is the kind of person that I can relate to. I'm kind of like that. Like, I'll give somebody respect, a little bit of it, but ultimately, if I see that person respects me, I'll give them so much more respect. And the only reason why is because my whole life, my stepmom and my dad were like, treat people how you want to be treated, right? So if you show someone just a little bit of respect, they give you some respect back, then it's a mutual trade at that point. So that's how Jon Snow is, right? Clearly. Way more like that than than most people. Like, even in real life, Kit Harington playing that character said one of the hardest things was how much of an amoral, awesome, excellent person Johnson, which makes me think he reads the books, because that's awesome, because that's not necessarily shown as, and also he gets way more context for stuff, for scenes on the show, so he has just much more with the character. He played the person, right? But, so yeah, Jon Snow is just the type of dude where if the people at Castle Black who were new recruits like him if they weren't mean to him, in short, like, to put it bluntly, Jon would have been nice to them, but they were buttholes to them. So Jon's like, hey, look, I'm going to be buttholes to you guys, right? So Sam is not a butthole to Jon at all. Sam is getting picked on by them. So ultimately Jon defends them, and then eventually Jon becomes friends with them, and Sam, when he does get his POV, I think Sam gets his first POV in Storm of Swords, because we get his POV when they're out, like when they switch perspectives. So like, Sam is back with Mormont, and Jon Snow is off with the wildlings. So we get to find out what happens with the people at Castle Black through Sam's perspective. And when you do that, you find out that Sam is very much continuing his journey even without Jon Snow. And, just to kind of relate to what I was saying about, I'm trying to tie this all into the king theory and of how I think he's going to survive and potentially be a candidate because of a simple marriage. Daenerys is going to have to take 2 riders. She'll lose 1 dragon. This is the silly theory I came up with, and I was trying to mastermind all of it together, and it's not going to work, and I still have some stuff that I want to talk about that I think potentially people will enjoy, right? So, I was thinking that he could be offered because he'll be at the Citadel, right? So he'll likely, and this is crazy, put your tinfoil caps on. He'll be at the Citadel. He's at the Citadel right now. That's about to be attacked by Euron, who has this ship that's filled with blood, right? It's confirmed. Euron has these giant cocks. It's what the Greyjoys do that kind of makes them cool when you put certain aspects of their culture aside, like the raping, the reaping, the pillaging. If you can just put that aside, just for a moment, just put that aside. Right? It's like trying to sympathize with like a Nazi or something. It's insane. But that's how good of a writer George. Whoa, let me back up from that. That was a stupid thing to say, but the Greyjoys do some terrible things, right? The fact that I kind of like, well, it's easy to like Theon because Theon's a likable POV, but it's hard to like Victarion and Euron as from what they do, right? But one of the cool things is that after they defeat somebody, you kind of can become a thrall, which is like their version of a slave, but ultimately you kind of have some rights, like in Roman society. You could vote if you were a Roman citizen. Like, and a lot of the times when you were a Roman citizen, you didn't necessarily have to have a higher up position. You just had to have the citizenship. Like, I think there's cases in Roman history where there would be like hundreds of people who'd be like, yes, we're citizens of Rome, because the amount of privilege that comes with being a Roman citizen, right? So, I swear to God, I'm not doing this on purpose. The Greyjoys with the thralls. That's why I went on that random tangent. But when they destroy a ship, when they attack, like right now, for instance, Victarion, like we get to see what exactly Greyjoys do through Victarion's POV. He's making his way around the world, and he's trying to get Daenerys to bring what Euron thinks he's doing is bring Daenerys back, right? Control one of her dragons, be a dragonbinder, but bring Daenerys back so that he can marry Daenerys, and together they'll take over the world, right? But ultimately, Euron's not stupid. Victarion's not that stupid. So, Victarion decided he's going to marry Daenerys himself, and then he finds out that Dragonbinder isn't something safe to use. He knows that Euron is, his gifts are poisoned, which is what made me initially go, oh, well, then Victarion's a pretty smart dude, because there's a lot of people, like pretty much all of Ironborn society, that trust Euron, but Victarion sees through that immediately. So I was like, oh, he's a smart dude. But apparently George has said before, and my buddy Robert from In Deep Geek, who I've mentioned like 5 times this stream, goddamn, I'm trying to get another collab going with me and my buddy Robert. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Everybody go tweet at Robert right now. Be like, hey, Sir Hunt wants to do another collab. You should come on his channel. Or he should go on your channel. Whatever. Anyway, so when the Greyjoys defeat, let me focus more. When they defeat another ship, remember I just explained what Victarion's on his way to go do. He's going to go trick Euron. He's going to marry Daenerys. He's hopefully going to find a way to use Dragonbinder. He found out from Makoro, who's this fire priest, that explains to him, you can get Dragonbinder if you kill the original owner of it. And then Victarion's like, well, kinslaying, that's a bad thing. But basically he's like, I'll just have to have somebody else do it. So Victarion, when you think about his character, he actually isn't stupid. I'm going to defy whatever George said, because George probably forgot how awesome of a character he wrote in Victarion. George easily forgets stuff. He literally had to hire Elio and Linda to help him remember stuff. And they ultimately wrote things for World of Ice and Fire. Like, they remember things about his world that he didn't. So it wouldn't shock me if he just thought Victarion's stupid. But then that was his main point when writing Victarion. But then ultimately he's like, well, none of these people are that stupid. They have to survive in this world. So let me make them smart. And he just kind of forgot the smart aspects. Like, Victarion's a pretty smart dude. I can make a case for any character. For any character to be like an alright person. That's how good of a writer he is. But anyway, that interview that I've never seen or have never read the article that's quoted as, I'm just taking Robert's word on that. I'll have to look that up because I need to get the exact quote. But anyway, Victarion, he's going to go get Daenerys. Euron is outside in the POV that we get through Forsaken, through Aeron, who's been given Shade of the Evening, which, if you'll recall what happens to Daenerys when she drinks Shade of the Evening, she sees some wild shit. So depending on the person, if they have a certain bloodline, like Daenerys is a Targaryen, and she's a main character, and she drinks a prophetic juice that's basically, I said it was really strong mushrooms. Like, I personally have tried some mushrooms called albino penis envy, and they're about 3 times more psychoactive than regular psilocybin, right? I personally tried those, so I was like, oh, this dude, Aeron, you're just on that, bro. You'll be all right. You know what I mean? You just got to bottom out, just think positive, right? But when that happens to a main character, they see some crazy shit. So that's what's happening to Aeron in the whole Forsaken chapter. He's just seeing the most crazy things that he's ever seen, right? It wouldn't shock me if Euron's powers are exaggerated, just like Melisandre, because Euron hasn't been around. He hasn't had enough time on Planetos to kind of, I guess, gain enough magic and knowledge. Ultimately, in George's world, if you're alive for long enough, it seems like the little bit of information that we have about magic and how magic works in this world, it seems like the older you are, the more secret abilities you have. For instance, Bloodraven. We know for a fact Bloodraven, obviously there's other characters like Melisandre and the Ghost at Highheart, but I think for the most part, Melisandre is, or not Melisandre, Bloodraven is the perfect example of someone who has magic, and it's mostly because he's been around for an old age. It hasn't been explained yet. We just know he's over 100 years old. We don't know any other characters other than the Ghost of Highheart that have been around for that long, and because of that, it seems like Euron is kind of full of shit, right? So the guy that's viewing him do all these things or sees him in this certain light is on heavy, albino penis envy mushroom juice, right? It's blue too, right? So George describes as blue. I've never done any psychedelics like that, but I've done a couple types, and one of the kinds that I have is that, and it's blue, and there's a lot of blue stuff that, relates to that in that world. And they're, decriminalized where I did them at, so that's cool. But, he did them in his closet. Wait. I try to think of something funny from a dumb Eminem song, but yeah, that's me trying to be funny. Anyway, what the hell was I about to say? Euron, Samwell's at the Citadel, just got there. Euron is there. Now, there are things like time jumps, right? But there's just no way that Euron's already been to the Citadel when we know Sam's last POV, which is when he gets to the Citadel, he meets Marwyn. Marwyn hears about Daenerys, right? Here's about the information that Aemon was obsessed with, and Aemon, blind Aemon, heard this information because it was mentioned by this singer, Darius or something like that. Darius basically sings words, kind of like just talks about how Daenerys has 3 dragons brought it back in the world. And then Aemon hears that he's partly senile, he's near death, and it's Jon Snow's fault that he dies, because he may have lived longer if he hadn't been sent on that crazy journey, because they're sent from the Wall all the way halfway around the country to the Citadel, and they're taking ships, and they don't necessarily have enough money. They run out of money. The singer, Darian, that's his name. The singer Darian spends up the little bit of money that he was going to spend to buy them supplies that they needed that would have maybe kept Maester Aemon alive longer. He doesn't do that. He spends the money elsewhere, right? So what would potentially go down with Sam in how he would be claimed king is that his adaptability, like, you know, he's survived thus far, right? He would be, it just, the dumb tinfoil theory that I've been trying to set up this whole time is that it would be similar to something that happened with Tyrion, where Tyrion's taken into slavery, and Tyrion has to play the part to, well, Tyrion has literally killed his father. Tyrion's done some of the worst things, and he's had to do some of the craziest things because of that, right? Without making me go on some tangent about Tyrion. Samwell will probably become a thrall, and that's kind of why I was explaining. And this is crazy. I don't know if anybody's ever said this. I've never seen a post for it on Reddit. I've never seen it tweeted about. But potentially another YouTuber said that. I don't know. If Sam becomes a thrall, he'll realize the way to do that is because Gilly's not with him at the Citadel. If I'm not mistaken, Gilly is with the Summer Islanders on the ship, and he's potentially just going to go tell them, Gilly, to go back to Hornhill with his family. That's his plan, but she doesn't go into the Citadel with him. Like Sam goes in by himself. And I wouldn't be surprised if a few of the other characters, and this would be crazy because this maybe wouldn't even happen until the end of Winds of Winter, and it's a crazy tinfoil theory, so I'll just keep going with it. He becomes a thrall for the Ironborn. That links him up with Daenerys eventually, because one of the best ways for Daenerys to get to Westeros, and everybody thinks this, is through this fleet that Victarion has. She's not gonna marry him. Maybe he's got one of the best offers on the I have to pee really bad. I'm going to go pee real quick after I finish this and move on to my patron stuff. How long have I been streaming now? 2 hours, 32 minutes, 30 seconds. So he's going to link up with them, and that's how he'll get up with Daenerys. And because he knows Jon Snow, because he's seen Arya, because he's seen Breanne, because he's seen all these characters, he's going to literally be he'll just be one of the last people. He just kind of just standing there, you know what I mean? He's got the most experience. He's like this adept wizard, you know. One of the best things is that the show left him alive. Everybody thought he would be writing the story. I don't even remember if he did do that, like Bilbo, Frodo rather. Continuing what Bilbo did. I gotta go pee. Let me go pee real quick. All right. So yeah, Sam would eventually via that way work his way, to Daenerys, and then link the two of them up in the super mega theory, and then maybe Jon and Daenerys have to die because they're Targaryen, they're heroes. All right, yada yada. Let's see. The first comment from Patreons. The art in the background is from Ted Nasmith, who's the dude that did the Castle of the Rock Castle that George was just posting about in his Nod blog. And then also the one on the bottom, I don't know how to explain it. It's definitely like a render. It doesn't look like AI. It looks like some sort of a Blender thing where like they made, generated Valyrian stuff, but it's the artist's name is Megadeus, and then the one who did the other one, Megadeus. That's funny. And then the other one is Ted Nasmith, who I just mentioned. So my Patreon member, let me move my camera a bit. My patron who mentioned this, Danny Dino, or who says, this is a topic from my patron, and if you would like to join, you can join for as little as $2, and you immediately gain access to stuff like reactions to Buffy, which is one of my favorite TV shows when I was growing up. I've done a reaction to House of the Dragon episode 1, and the only reason why I haven't posted more reactions, I've recorded a bunch, right? They're in the bank. I'm waiting to see how Patreon's copyright is, because I play the audio and I'm reacting to the episode, I do pause it and I talk, and I'm talking the whole time, right? But I don't know, and they're only 12 minutes to like maybe 13 minutes long, but I'm just waiting, because their Patreon video is so new that no one really knows. When you look up, the information about it, no one really knows a lot of information about it, because it just, time will tell. Like on YouTube, I upload a video, if it's a copyright thing where I'm using someone's music, or I use too much of an audio thing, YouTube will let me know before I make it public. Their algorithm does mess up, where if you use too long of a video clip, if something's like maybe 15.1 seconds or something, or maybe 13 seconds, and they decided that the algorithm only allows for 10 seconds of showing something, I never play the audio, because that'll trigger the YouTube stuff immediately. There are bigger YouTubers like the new Rockstars dude. They'll play audio from a trailer that just came out and seemingly be fine with copyright stuff. That's one of the benefits that comes with being a bigger channel, right? But with Patreon, I don't know how that thing goes, but if it is, that'll be like, it'd be cool, because I could do anime. I recorded some stuff for Berserk, which is one of my favorite anime. Also, I mentioned this before, Dorohedoro, which is this really cool, I know I said that wrong as hell, so my mouth is dry. Dorohedoro, right? I can speak fake kanji really well. I'm sorry, Japanese, yes, but what is the street characters called? Kanji? I think so. I don't know. I can speak fake Japanese very well. I'll sound just like I'm speaking Japanese. Y'all want to hear it real quick? Not going to do it, because that's Mitsubishi Japan. No, I'm just kidding. I can actually, like when I listen to Japanese anime that's only in, that's only subbed, obviously, because I won't do it if I have a good dub, right? But if it's a sub, I will listen to the Japanese version, and I can do a banging impression of a Japanese vocal artist. But yeah, not out of disrespect, I'm a big fan of Japanese. I think most nerds are fans of Japanese people. Like, nerds in general don't really hate a lot of things, but Japanese people with the animes and the culture in general, pretty cool. One thing that isn't necessarily cool about Japan is like how there's very little other races that live in Japan. Like, very few of every race, not just one race, but every race, right? And also, I've seen videos of athletes that go over there to play for certain sport teams that get crazy shit. So that's not necessarily cool, but I was just saying that because my conscience was like, dude, you just made fun of Japanese people by saying, Mitsubishi, Honda, Japan, Tokyo, Korea, right? Like, I just did all that, and I just, like, yeah. So anyway, Danny, damn, did I just make that way worse? I bet you I did. Why is the chat not refreshed? Oh, no one's typed anything. That's why. Okay. All right. So this is from Danny Dino, a Patreon mod, which you can join for like $2. I bet you that little rant just got me demonetized. Other than the dance, Aegon's conquest, and Dunkin' Egg, which other Targaryen timeline or rule would you like to see a show about? Ooh. I mean, Danny, you picked the best ones, Aegon's Conquest and Dunkin' Egg, and, those are two pretty good ones. And, we have House of the Dragon for, those are, like, pretty good ones. I would say Doom of Valyria, that's the one you didn't mention. Aegon's Conquest would not be Doom, obviously. I think you know that, Danny. But the Doom, I've said this before since I found out from reading Fire and Blood. Really World of Ice and Fire. It's the mages. Too many of the fire mages were killed, and this is what caused the volcanoes to all erupt at once. I know I was just talking about the Doom, and I may have said, and I gave multiple theories, but ultimately, it sounds like that is the most plausible thing that happened, because they played the Game of Thrones, which is what the first book is called, what the TV show was called. They played the Game of Thrones, but it was in Valyria. So, Valyrian families, Valyrian great houses played, like, there was probably a House Lannister in Valyria. There was probably a House Frey, a house that was known for being backstabbery. Like, what if House Targaryen was like House Stark? The newer Ned Stark's generation of Starks. Because if you go back far enough, the House Starks are some of the first men are some of the worst, if you want to call it worse by our standards. They're some of the worst, one of the worst cultures in there. For the Children of the Forest and the Giants to not really have done anything, and then, they're just kind of sitting there, and then bam. That's George's hippie in them, though. Boom. Damn, I can't believe I did that. Really racist impression of a Japanese person. I'm actually pretty sure that would... okay, so... to answer that, in short, the Doom of Valyria. Finding out what houses... Well, we know the Targaryens were not as powerful as they, ruling Westeros, because when they were chased out, like I mentioned earlier, when they were chased out, their enemies, their immediate rivals, which would be, if they were Lannisters, the Lannisters' immediate rivals in the books before the events of the War of the Five Kings are the Ironborn. The Ironborn are locationally the closest to the Westerlands to come in and raid and reap and pillage them all the time. We're going to get to see that in House of the Dragon, Joanna Lannister, and a bunch of different things. So that'll be really, fun to see on screen. But ultimately, just to move on to another question, because I'm running out of... I feel like I'm running out of time. She hasn't messaged me yet, but I thought I just heard them start crying. I think this is the longest I've streamed so far in a while. Not ever. I think one time there's one stream that I did that was 5 hours. I'm at 2 hours and 43 minutes. All right, so yeah. Because, I could keep going on this, on different tangents, different facets of what I'd like to see on screen. If I had to choose something different other than the answer I just gave, like the Doom of Valyria, which great houses, how they played the Game of Thrones, a different answer, another period in Targaryen history would be not in specifically Targaryen history, but would be like how they just one solid account from George. And they'll probably, this is the only place we'll get it, because he doesn't, it's not his writing style to give us definitive stuff like this in his books, but it would be how they initially tamed the dragons. So not a Targaryen timeline, but a Valyrian timeline. Was there another dragon riding lord that gave them, right? Or was it, the type of way where it was like these sexual rituals kind of thing? You know what I mean? right. And then thank you for your support, Danny. I appreciate you submitting a question too as well. And then this next one, where am I at? Or why can't I move my camera over? Alright, there we go. This is from me, but it's for a patron of mine, Anna. Hang on one second. I was gonna check to see if they're in the chat. If Anna is in the chat, I don't have to timestamp this, and she could just watch. Hang on one second. If you are, type, please. Sorry, that sounded rude. All right. Oh, right there. Okay. Is that your username on Twitter too? I think it is. All right. Cool. So this was something that you had mentioned, and then I was like, save it for the live stream contribution thing. So I pasted and copied that. All right. So you said this was so the road rage part of that. I basically copy and pasted it onto like the main post that I did on Patreon for like, I usually give people several days notice over there to submit questions, only because I'm very thorough with the researching stuff for the most part, unless it's something that I'm familiar with. I'll usually try to take several hours because George's world is so extensive, it's very easy to get lost in researching specific topics, right? But she said for the road rage, I feel it. I hate how people drive. So I was recording something when I was driving. I was on the highway, and there was a lot of traffic, I think. The audio for that was really bad, so apologies to all of my patrons who listened to that. Sorry about that. But it's hard for me to see this because it's so small. Let me see if I can't make it bigger. Oh, wait, no, I can't because it's attached to the Tyrion thumbnail. Which, did I not? There's no way I forgot to put the artist's name on this one. No way. It's got to be already on it, and these are the first ones that I made. Or, sorry, the ones that I made later, because the other topics that I pulled up I had planned for before making the post on Patreon. Which one is it? Oh, there we go. Is it up top? Oh, Fantasy Flight Games, but that's not good enough. So the image is officially licensed by a gaming company that has made George's. Let me check something real quick though. Trying to find the person who made the image of Tyrion. All right. Whoa. Technically, the image is copyrighted by Fantasy Flight Games, but usually you can find the artist that did it when they were working for that company. I don't know which one, though. Damn. All right. Well, it's definitely it's copyrighted by Fantasy Flight Games, and I'm probably just gonna put it in the description, which would have been a lot easier than delaying the stream for that long. My bad. All right. So let me adjust this. All right, so it says, Tyrion from the books is so different from the show. I just got in like 300 pages into Dance in Fire and Blood right now, and I'm loving it. After the whole thing happens with his crossbow chapters, or wait, I'm sorry, not Dance with Fire and Blood. Tyrion's mushroom. There's a theory for you. No, you mean I'm sorry, I misconstrued it. In the Dance with Dragons, and after the whole thing happens with the crossbow, his chapters after that he changes completely, and I love it. How do you think Wins will go with his character? I'm assuming he'll end up as being Dany's hand, like something in relation to Dany. I think for sure, just because proximity, right? So they're so close to each other. And then also, one of the ways Tyrion can get back at Cersei is by teaming up with her enemy. Tyrion just signed up with the Second Sons, right? Isn't that what are they called? It's Brown Ben Plum, and he basically signs over the entire wealth of Casterly Rock. So, if his fate is tied in with Daenerys, he probably is. I don't know if he'll survive till the end. Like, that would be one of the biggest deaths for George's story to do. It would be unexpected because he survived so much. He survived an assassination attempt. Obviously, Cersei was the one who ordered it, but ultimately, he could, even if he didn't die directly from that attack and Podrick Payne saved his life, right? He still would have, like, it's just King's Landing is so dangerous. Something would have happened, and Tyrion could not get over Shay. He couldn't keep Shay, he couldn't keep away from her, right? So he was bound to kind of fall. But ultimately, signing over the wealth of Casterly Rock is pretty big. I don't know if that's going to focus Brown Ben Plum's intentions on staying in Essos. He knows ultimately going to Westeros is going to be the way to get his money. And Daenerys may not want to necessarily go to Westeros right away, especially she's on sabbatical, spending a bunch of time out in the desert, right? Daenerys is, it would be frustrating if, obviously the wait for Winds of Winter is bad, but it would be really, really frustrating if Daenerys, ultimately decided to stay in Essos for all of Winds of Winter until towards the end during the last couple of POVs, right? I'm a strong believer that Daenerys not going to, if she does die, she won't die till the very end. Like I was saying, it'd be cool to save Tyrion's death for the very end, right? Or to have it be like Paul Atreides' death, right? Where the end is coming, so no matter whose death happens, ultimately you knew it was going to be in, so some character had to die. It's better to kind of kill somebody off right before then, right? And then for me, most recently, that was with never having read Dune, right? And then I believe it's in Children of Dune, Paul finally dies, right? So you've Dune, Messiah, Children of Dune, and Paul finally dies. And the way he dies is just so unexpected. Like, it's expected, but the way that he just stabbed and discarded, and then Dune has this tendency when you're reading it to sort of get over a character's death and move on very quickly, right? And one of the ways it does that is by skipping 3,500 years, right? So if they save Daenerys' death I think that'll be the case. Like she's gonna do some crazy things. let me reread the question and refresh myself. How do you think Wins will go with his character? I'm assuming he will end being her hand. Oh, yeah. So, yes, if he was, just to summarize my answer, if he was going to have his journey wrapped up with her, it'd probably be maybe their deaths would be intertwined. Like, maybe one character will be directly involved with the death. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all for book Tyrion, but it would shock me for show Tyrion to have had a hand in Daenerys' death, kind of, and like he kind of did, right? He was, like, if I'm not mistaken, he was talking to Jon about the Tyrant thing, like, kind of, whatever. But I don't know if Tyrion would have stabbed her, but like in the book, it wouldn't shock me at all if he gets really close with her. Like he's gonna be close to where she shows up in A Winds of Winter anyway. But if her relationship would be really easy to develop with a character like Tyrion really quickly. So you would give a shit about their relationship when you're reading it, and to have him betray her then, that would be the third betrayal, be for gold, right? All the gold in Castle Rock, right? That's the Daenerys' third betrayal. All the gold in Castle Rock, and potentially, that's how, he could be her hand for just a few chapters and still be her hand, or like be her hand and never have actually had the official title, wherein he gives Daenerys advice and ultimately makes one decision that would only someone would only be able to do while acting in a position like Daenerys' hand. But thank you for submitting that, Anna. Also, sorry again to all of my patrons who listened to the audio podcast where I was recording my it was like 12 minutes, I think. I don't think it was that long, but yeah, sorry. Video capture device. Let's see, move this over here. All right, so this art right here, the only art on the thing, that's just a picture from House of the Dragon. Obviously, Warner Brothers owns it. This is by Quartz Draws. That's why it was so odd to me that I didn't put the artist's name on the last image, because I know I did this for all of these. It took me like, I'm complaining. I enjoyed doing it, but it took me like 3 hours to make all these things, and then months of research. All right, so art by this right here is really cool. That's a depiction of Melees, and it's by Quartz Draws, that's one word, so you can search Quartz Draws and find out who it is. And this is from The North Must Remember. Is he in the chat right now? I see Dennis Sorensen. Let me look at participants in the chat right now. I just see Anna as a participant. Wait, maybe I need to refresh the chat. Something went wrong. Oh, damn. Did it stop live streaming or something on YouTube? That happens. I've been streaming for 2 hours, 57 minutes. That's 3 hours. So, yeah, maybe. Hang on a second. I'll check my keys. You know what's crazy? My stomach, I don't think this microphone has picked it up, but it has been rumbling for the past half hour of this stream, and I'm dedicated. I was chugging this water to try to soothe my... Oh, listen to the fat man complaining. The fat man. The fat man problems. Hey, Sheldon McLeod, what's up? How are you doing this evening? I certainly don't see a username Mix Queen Destiny Final Contain. That's how she would think that someone like me would talk, according to the last video she just sent me of that person playing that guitar. I've seen that video. I've seen all the videos you've seen and then some. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it was funny. It was funny. I think it's funnier to me to be like, yeah, I seen it, but I ain't saying nothing. I'm just kidding. Thank you for sending me that sign back there, and then also for the hat. My son wears that all the time, and then also the ornament right there. That's my favorite, the Viserion ornament. That'll be going on the tree. Actually, it won't be going on the tree next year because if my son doesn't really mess with the ornaments. I mean, he'll pull them off, the ones that he likes, but he just brings them to me. He messes with the lights, and with the lights, pulling those that thing, if it falls from any height, it'll break. Shout out Dennis Sorensen. Yo, is there something that you have a question on? I know you're watching and you've been listening, but I actually have space for one more question because there was I had like one slot filled in. There was still a question that I needed submitted, but someone had submitted it. Someone named like, I don't know, Destiny or something. But I'm not gonna actually do that question. I didn't have time to actually make the thumbnail because it was submitted probably about 5 minutes before. But I have enough time right now, Dennis. You know what I'm saying, my man. If you wanted to submit a question in place of a question that I had potentially may have gotten something ready for, but I don't know yet. We'll see. Anyway, the art is from Quartz Draws. Thank you for that, Maylees. Thank you for letting me use that by uploading it online. But I'm, going to be potentially giving credit where credit is due. Oh, we're at the 3-hour mark. This will be a clip. Okay, this will be a clip that I'll probably upload like the things that I think are funny, which, not necessarily everybody else thinks are funny, but I'll upload those to my Instagram story, which I am very active. I don't ever really let my Instagram story not have some post, which to me seems really neurotic, but Instagram actually showed me how many people are interactive with my Instagram page, which is something like, it was for the month of like, obviously when the show was on, it was like 112,000 accounts that my account reached, which I obviously can't make money off of Instagram. Well, no, that's not true. You can make money off of Instagram, I'm sure, but I haven't. But anyway, the amount of traffic that I saw going there, I was like, okay, if some of that went to my YouTube channel, so that's why I've been promoting myself. And then also, I follow some very artistic people. I try to promote their stuff as often as possible. If you like embroidery stuff, which I actually didn't know I liked, but I seen it, and I was like, oh, that's dope. There was like this, there's this embroidery account that I follow that did like this thing they do all kinds of stuff, and I share their story often, right? But they did this one in particular for House of the Dragon that I saw that the director shared, and I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, which is really good. So shout out to Thrill of Thread is what their account name is. But this is from The North Must Remember. Thank you, my man. Long time Dragon Knight tier Patreon member over on my Patreon, which you can join for $2. He says, so thank you for that, man. He says, our next dragon battle will likely be Rook's Rest. Do you think there will be aggression on both sides of the battle, or will there be hesitance and misunderstandings that lead to more tragedies like in season 1? All right, let me read that again in my head. That's gonna be hard for me to answer this because there's some leaks that I was sent that I really like, right? Obviously, they're all a load of shit. I always say that, a load of horse crap, right? Take it with a grain of salt. Matter of fact, don't even take it with a grain of salt, because just listen to it, let it go in one ear and out the other, right? Unless it's Daenerys' death, right? Because that was leaked to everybody. A solid year and a half before it was shown on screen. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the leaks for Game of Thrones have been pretty extensive to the point where we knew exact episode contents. And also, same with House of the Dragon. It's pretty crazy. Game of Thrones, it's to the point, and obviously kind of seems like that with House of the Dragon. There was a couple episodes that leaked early, right? Like, I was just on Reddit, and there's this thread that pops up on the Free Folk, and this dude's like, yo, I got a copy of the episode, but I'm French. Send me your name in the DMs or something like that, and he sends you a link, and then you click the link, and then you get the fucking episode downloaded to your phone. And I solid had 24 hours to make the episode beforehand. You know what? It's my fault for not being more active to try to reach out to HBO to try to get access to the episodes early. There are YouTubers that get access to those early, right? So shout out to them. Obviously, they were way more active than I was in trying. Let me refresh the chat. I haven't seen it move. That's really weird. It says 41 viewers here, but then it says 2 viewers over here. What the hell? I'm like, am I watching myself? Is it mirrored? Is only 2 people watching right now? I think the YouTube page is the more accurate one. Damn, I've gone on for 3 hours and there's only 2 people. Shout out to if there are actual 2 people and it's not just me watching myself and then my girlfriend watching me because she always watches me, right? Shout out if it's not. I gotta refresh this page, dog. Because I'm not seeing nothing in the chat neither. That is crazy. And then now it says 0. Oh, you know what? I'm stupid. I'm really dumb. I was looking, right? Get this. There's 2 separate columns in the YouTube set. This is pretty funny, actually. Sorry, I'm an idiot. I swear to God, I read all the time. 2 different things. One says concurrent viewers. One says chat rate. And the chat just hadn't refreshed in a while, like people weren't talking. And it said 2. And then it said 0. But I didn't look above it. I just immediately was like, well, that's what I've been looking at the whole time. Because my eyes just slightly adjusted a little bit from looking at the camera. Damn, that was crazy. I was going to say, damn, bro. 2 people? That's... All right, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Obviously, my patrons would come back and watch it. And they are the people that are my biggest fans, right? That's why most of them are you. That's why it's usually 9 times out of 10 my patrons are the one who wins the giveaways because they always be watching me. All right. So the leaks that I was sent right before I went on that tangent about how believable some leaks could be, and then also had a small meltdown about how I had 2 and then 0 people watching me, but it was just the chat rate, right? I was sent some leaks that were said, like, apparently Aegon is the aggressor. And this is believable because I believe before, you know what? I think maybe the person who leaked this might have been listening to my live streams. Because I remember saying one time, not one time, it was in my episode 9 live stream. I remember saying, hey, actually, it was in a live stream that I did after that because the episode 9 live stream for some reason got demonetized. And then get this. It doesn't matter because the video wasn't getting any views, right? But there was a video that I uploaded that had all of my episode breakdowns in it. It's demonetized. But when I look, none of the videos that I uploaded in that, I had to leave out episode 5 because that one was demonetized. That was like a red demonetized. Something I said in that pissed YouTube off. But the one I'm talking about, all those videos are clear. They're all green for monetization. And they're all in the same video. I guess just the fact that it's all in the same video made it unmonetizable. That's insane. YouTube's algorithm is going nuts because every single thing that's in that is already on YouTube cleared for monetization. That's how messed up. We just started a new year. That's how messed up YouTube is, which is why I upload to Patreon, right? Like I said, my goal is to upload to Patreon every day. I uploaded a bunch in a few days. I need to try to space it out. It's a goal. Doesn't mean I have to hit it, but it does mean I need to come pretty close to it. So if I upload 20 videos or 22, 25 videos on my Patreon, that's a good thing. Came pretty close to the goal. Never done that before. I actually have a bunch of content already up there, so if I uploaded that much more, right? And the big thing is once YouTube does crack down on this stuff, all of the videos that I would normally make there are going to Patreon. And you can't make Patreon pledges for anything less than 50 cents. If you could, and I had to do something like that, I would make it 50 cents so that people could join. If you join for $1, I get like, I think 70 cents of that. I think Patreon takes the one that I have it for, which is for videos, the ability to be able to upload a video content, which is dope. That's the next level for Patreon, because before you'd have to link Vimeo stuff, and a lot of people still do that, but I don't. I upload directly to Patreon, so you can click it. It's clearer than it is to YouTube. That's what's awesome right now. The videos that I upload to Patreon are clearer than the ones that I upload to YouTube. So theoretically, if I were to upload a video that I edit for YouTube only to Patreon, it would look so much better because Patreon doesn't have a weird algorithm that compresses the video, the bit rate of the video down to something where it's, you know, like if I were streaming it live. A lot of the times when I'm doing my green screen stuff, I set up for like 25 minutes or something, which to me is a long time to set up before I even start filming for the green screen stuff, right? Because it's hard to get to that stuff. It looks so much better when I'm watching it on my computer. Then I upload it to YouTube and I'm like, hey, it looks decent, I think, but it would look way better, and it's going to on Patreon, because Patreon doesn't compress the video at all. It uploads the full resolution. So that's another reason. If you're, watching me on your TV or something and you're joining Patreon, specific shout out Billy Bong. I know my buddy Billy Bong up in Scotland. Yeah, he's up in Scotland, I think he tells me. But yeah, if you're watching me on TV, that's something cool with Patreon. And also, if you listen to audio, I do both. I'm uploading video and audio. But also, you can turn your phone off and it still plays. Like YouTube, the paid thing that you pay for with YouTube Patreon is pretty good about stuff like that. Like, they do weird stuff where I get emails, but it's pretty cool with the video stuff, which is what made me popular on YouTube, is uploading videos. So I think that's really important. Patrons not playing with that, especially when you do. So they take a little bit more, is what I was saying, which is why I cut off the $1 tier. When you do the video option, and I swear to God, I'm done talking about this. When you do the video option, they take more of your patrons' pledges before they obviously give it to the creator, right? Me. So I cut the $1 tier because they already took, X amount of percent of that. So now they take, I think, 8%. So it kind of seems silly when there's a day's worth of content never before seen if you're just an average YouTube watcher. Which, if you are, fuck yeah, thank you. So I try to make videos as often as possible where I answer random questions from people that watch, because that's the most important thing. If you can't do any of that, thank you for doing what you're doing right now, which is watching. All right, so continue on. I had to do some promotion here. This is 3 hours in, and I don't think I've done that once. I think I did it. I think I mentioned it casually, right? Pretty good. 3 hours in. All right, so our next dragon battle will likely be Rook's Rest. Do you think there will be any aggression? So the leaks mentioned that Aemon would go to town on the small folks because of how powerful he feels being king, right? That's what some of the leaked stuff that I've been sent says. Do I think there will be any aggression on both sides of the battle? For sure. Like, both sides, you mean greens, blacks? That would be Rhaenys versus, so initially what happens in Rook's Rest is the Castellan at Rook's Rest sends messages to Rhaenyra, right? But Rhaenyra just lost her daughter and her son, and she is obsolete at that point, right? That's how casual the book is at some events that happen. It literally just Fire and Blood says something like Rhaenyra was after losing such and such, or after losing Lucerys, and then her daughter, Visenya, right? Isn't that what she names her daughter? She's bedridden. She can't do it, right? So that's when Jacaerys and Rhaenys and Corlys step up and they take control of the Black Council, right? Daemon is off in Harrenhal fighting the war in the Riverlands against Aemon, right? So, and obviously Aemon secret. That's why they assume Aemon isn't at Rook's Rest. That's why it's a trap. They assume it's just Sunfire and Aegon. I would think that's not specifically mentioned. Like, they don't say the reason why these people do this, and that's because there's no POV. So, Rhaenys goes by herself, right? She shows up at Rook's Rest to help the Castellan, who mentioned how, they got dragons, they're over here burning shit. So Sunfire and here's the thing, they may not even do Rook's Rest this way. They may save Aegon being burned and disassembled for a later event, because maybe they want to give his character more screen time before ultimately being taken out. Like, when that does happen to him, and you would think in a canonical show, if they stuck with it a lot, he would be out for a whole season. Like, why would you want to do that with the actor if you could have some other plot develop that could potentially make his character as cool as, like, some of the choices the actors made himself? Like, he was like, in short, like, let's make this dude have some more character, right? And be more fucking emo, right? And it made sense, right? I know I just butchered what he actually said, but nah, for real. So, that would be cool. I think some of the aggression, like, you can't, if you're being attacked by dragons, you can't really be aggressive, are you? You're just defending your territory, Also, you could be referring to the actual dragon battle itself, and less like what draws. Is that what you? Now that I'm rereading that a little bit, is that what you mean? Instead of what draws melees out there and help from for the blacks, potentially, that's definitely possible. Sorry, my daughter's gonna need a nap. But my son already has his. Okay. You know what I need? You know, I'm getting so distracted right now. My brain feels like it's drawn out. Cigarette, but I'm not gonna do that to y'all. Y'all have been watching me for 3 hours, so I'll wait to smoke a cigarette. There's definitely gonna be something similar with not being able to control a dragon, right? Like what I'm thinking of is Rhaenys survives, right? And this is something that was sent to me, and also shit that I added on for a video, and I mentioned that in the video where I first mentioned this, the part that I added on to it, right? And it was right after the season ended, and I made so much content, I don't exactly remember. But Northwest, remember, I'm sure you watch all my stuff, so you probably know what I'm talking about. Please help me out in the chat if you're watching this right now. I don't know if you are. I know you just recently moved, so congratulations on that too. Also, help me out. I can't remember. Anyway, I think if Rhaenys survives the fall, and I mentioned this earlier in the stream too, Rhaenys survives the fall, and then one of the tragic things that would happen is Rhaenys would become a prisoner of war, right? She could be a captive, a prisoner that's traded for a ransom later on in the war, but Sunfire eats her because of what happened to Sunfire from Meleys. Meleys is dead. The dragon dies canonically, right, when they land, but Meleys may survive. It's a little bit weird about her death because they say specifically her corpse is so burned you don't recognize it, right? And a character like Rhaenys, you kind of have to have a little bit more than just her burning up in the end, so you could have something vicious, like obviously falling to the ground as vicious, but then being eaten by Sunfire, a half-dead dragon at that point, becoming substance for that half. And then you got to remember, Rhaenys sets up her death again, not just for the dragon pit, for the people, the citizens of King's Landing to attack the dragons in the dragon pit, but also sets up her own death by antagonizing the shit out of Aegon and crashing his oh damn, Sir Hunts is a genius. House of the Dragon team. If anybody's watching me, there's some House of the Dragon people that follow me on Instagram. It's pretty dope. I don't know if you know that, but like several people from House of the Dragon follow me on Instagram. If you're watching right now, please bring me on. I'll be like a writer's assistant. Do you have to go to school to be a writer's assistant? If so, let me know what school I have to go to, because I'm already at school, baby. I will do it. I'll be a writer's assistant and give advice because I'm a canon fiend. That would be my official title on set. My title at Con of Thrones was Clickbait King. My title on House of Dragon, if they bring me on as a writer's assistant, would be whatever I just said, but I can't remember. Damn, that's embarrassing. I promise you I won't be like that at work, obviously. Not work. I'll do it for free. Just let me hang out with the characters in costume. They got to be in costume, though. I'll do it for free, but the characters have to be in costume. Not all of the characters all the time, but the characters that I'll be working with for the day or whatever, they have to be in costume. And we'll just hang out, and I'll just be like, oh, that's cool. We'll smoke blunts and shit. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff, drink coffee, right? But they gotta be in the costumes, and then I'll just allow me to occasionally take pictures of us all hanging out so that I can post on my Instagram, be like, yeah, I was fucking chilling with motherfucking Rhaenyra, right? And I was motherfucking chilling with motherfucking Cardio Twins, right? And I was motherfucking chilling with motherfucking Alicent. You know what I'm saying? That would be cool. Totally would do that. Anyway, they should have Rhaenys eaten alive. And it should be a no, they got moment, because guess what? You can't always get what you want, but if you cry sometimes at a dragon, it makes for good TV. Swear to God, I just made that up. Makes for good TV. Oh, yeah. Y'all know what song that is. You get what you need. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. That was a good point to wrap this up. But guess what? We're going to keep going because I got a couple more questions from patrons. All right. Also, this isn't the only perk that you get from joining Patreon. You get 24 hours worth of content where I basically I try to be as funny as possible. That's literally what I'm doing, and also as informative as possible. So, in short, it's called Leaks and Lore. Please join. Consider joining. Please. All right, so here we go. This next. Oh, thank you for that, North Must Remember. Hopefully, North Must Remember makes his own content here. I don't see him in the chat. Let me see participants. I don't see him in the chat. If you are watching North Must Remember, please type. But go check out his channel. Mine's just he just moved, so I know he's probably busy. But hopefully I timestamp this 3:20. But this will be a timestamp for you, and then I had a timestamp. No, I don't have to timestamp for Anna because Anna was watching. All right, but yeah, all right. So thank you for submitting that question, my buddy. And then we got this one. This is from. That's my bull rat impression. Let's see over here. All right, this is from my Scottish lad. He says, "Do you think Billy Bob Thornton? I always say Thornton because the actor, Billy Bob Robertson, right? Do you think the Targs? Thank you for your support, buddy. Do you think the Targs were the phrase of Valyria? I'm sure I remember something about their family being mocked by all the others because they took everything and uprooted to Dragonstone, and it was also known that they were one of the smaller houses of Old Valyria. Also, do you think they have the devil's lettuce in Westeros? All right, so let me answer the first part first. In short, no, they have this stuff called sour leaf. It's this red, well, the spit from it is red, but it's this substance that you chew on. It offers some sort of pain relief, but it's also addictive. The people that use it in the audiobook, whoa, there's this old innkeep woman who uses it in particular in Roy's voice for that character. Oh my, it's nuts. It's so good. It's like if you can get to that level of voice acting, there's no way you wouldn't win awards like Roy did. Like, for real. Isn't he in the Guinness Book of World Records? I always say that. I hope he actually is. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most voices that any person can do in one audiobook, and then also a couple other things. He did a one-man play in England, in London, where he did all the characters, which sounds nuts. Right, so I've been to a few plays. The first play I went to, I didn't know what to expect. It was something called, like, I know I always want to say Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but I didn't go see a fucking play version of that movie. That movie's awesome. Didn't go see that. It was called Lying Tigers, Let Sleeping Tigers Lie or something. It was really popular play at the Playhouse I went to go see. The Playhouse, it was a playhouse in Raleigh, so it was called the Little Theater, Raleigh Little Theater or something. They do a bunch of plays. I didn't know what to expect. I enjoyed the fuck out of it, dude. And this was the only reason why I went is because my girlfriend was in nursing school at the time, and she had to get a class to fill out her, thing for the semester to make sure she had enough credits. And one of the classes that she took was like acting or drama or something. And she had to go to this play and then write a book report around it. Obviously not a book report, but just write a report about it. And she got tickets, and obviously I went with her. And it was because I didn't know what to expect. It was awesome. The play was funny, and it was also like it was just captivating to watch people that genuinely. Because like when I auditioned for plays in school, I was like, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna be the main character. I did it twice. I say it like I did it a bunch. I did it twice, and it was for the same play, and it was because they called me back for a second one. And it's kids that were doing it, like the kids that were picking. Like I was a freshman, I think, and the senior kids were the ones that were picking who gets to be in the play. So I was like, I'm so funny, I'm so popular, right? That's what I think in my head. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to audition for this play, I'm going to make these people laugh, I'm going to be main character. I don't even remember what play it was for, but I remember going in there, not even studying the lines, and they gave them to me, and I'm reading them off the thing, right? And they're like, okay, well, I guess they thought, let's call him back because he's funny. But I went back and, like, obviously didn't get it. But when I saw that play, what the fuck was the point of this? This is a crazy point. Watching plays is cool. I like turtles. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, Roy Detrice. All right, yeah, cool. Roy Detrice, cool. And all to answer that last part, Billy Bob Robertson, do I think there's devil's lettuce in Westeros? There's sour leaf. Sour leaf, yes, which is what I was saying. One of the characters that Roy Dotrice does that has a sour leaf addiction is this old maid that runs in, that a few of the POVs interact with, in particular Breanne, and the old lady has a just a really funny voice. And a lot of the characters that do have a sour leaf addiction, like I said, they do it for pain relief. It's also addictive, like cannabis. Cannabis is slightly addictive, right? Depends on your mental, right? Could be very addictive. Do you think the Targaryens were the phrase of Valyria? In short, yes, because George just said specifically the Targaryens aren't all that, right? They just escaped the doom and were the only ones with all their dragons, but not just with dragons, not just that they have dragons, all the dragons that were alive at that point, and then obviously eggs that were brought. They also brought every single member of their family, which that's how they survived the doom and also that's how big Dragonstone is in the books, right? And that's why dragon seeds are so plentiful, is that when they did that, which is, what is that? I think there's like 4 generations of Targaryens before you get to Aegon the Conqueror that resided on Dragonstone, right? So the main series of books takes place 300 years after the events of Aegon's conquest. House of the Dragon takes place 130 years after Aegon's conquest. Where the show is at right now, it's 130 years after Aegon's conquest. But before that, after the Doom, right? It's let me look at the question again, that'll bring me back. Yeah. It's made pretty clear that the Targaryens aren't all that, but the fact they got all their family members out is probably the reason why they survived. Oh yeah, my point is that because all the other Dragon Lords that did get survived, like I mentioned earlier in the live stream, one of them or two of them rather were killed by citizens of cities that they were in. So after the Doom happens, George mentions in A World of Ice and Fire that there's a couple of Dragon Lords that are in nearby cities to Valyria, but far enough away where they aren't affected by the Doom. They have their dragons with them, but in those cities, and he doesn't go into specific details because he's probably going to bring it up in later books, like, hey, there may potentially be another family of dragon riders that somehow may have survived. That's always a twist that could happen. Or just somebody who's descended from that family of dragon riders, potentially Aegon. So Aegon's not a Blackfire. He's not the Aegon we think it is, but he's from one of those Dragon Lords from Valyria. They're just going to steal one of Daenerys' dragons, and he'll be a Targaryen at that point. You got to realize their blood they intermixed so much that, and George literally says all of the Targaryen Lords intermarried, right? Because they wanted to keep their genetic specialty pure. They're all related. They're as much as related as the main houses of Westeros. Lannisters are related to Starks, are related to Baratheons, are related to Targaryens, are related to they all had marriages, and not every single one of those has been uncovered because George hasn't written about it yet, right? Or hasn't decided to reveal the information through a certain character's POV, right? You got to realize that's what he's getting at when he writes background for all this stuff, like sneaking a baby out of King's Landing. It's possible to do that. You'd totally do that, but also, wouldn't it be more interesting to have some crazier thing that'll never be confirmed, which will be like a descendant? And I'm sure lots of people have said that because you learn that as soon as you read World of Ice and Fire. It's one of the first things mentioned in the first part of the book in Doom of Valyria, right? It's literally in that chapter. I posted a picture of it in my story earlier if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's mentioned there, right? That the Targaryens... what was the point? It just, that's a good point. And then, the second part of the question, from Billy Bob Robertson, I'm sure I remember something about their family being mocked. Yep. Which I mentioned about how they were called by their George mentions by their immediate enemies, right? So their immediate rivals, they're mocked for fleeing, but we know it's because of Daenerys, and his maiden daughter Daenerys. Yep. So that was pretty much it. And then the Devil's Lettuce thing with the sour leaf. Thanks for your support, Billy. Also, thanks for being on Patreon. That's one of the things that you get to do if you're a member of a Discord, rather. Thank you for always being active on Discord. That's one of the best ways to get in touch with me. I'm on Discord constantly. I always check it every Every time I do my social media checking, I always check Discord. But you can join that if you're a member here on YouTube, or like a channel member, which means you get to watch my videos ad-free, or if you're a patron member. But thanks for that, man. And then this is from AnaaaRodarte. This was actually her question that was submitted. And then the other thing was something that I had to save because I had skipped the live stream from last week. So that was my fault. So I had to make sure I got that one because I thought it would be a good one to bring up on stream. Let me move this down to here. So this is done by Chase Stone, right? He's my favorite artist for A Song of Ice and Fire. I can say that definitively because there's an image that he did where it's very similar to this, but Aegon arrives at Dragonstone, and he's got Balerion, I believe it's Balerion, Chase Stone's depiction of Balerion right behind him, and it looks real. It actually looks real. When you look at it in high resolution, it looks real. It looks like a picture or photograph that was taken for a design that's for an upcoming show. It's so good. But it's Aegon with his three sisters, and Balerion's like so big that he got the scale right, that he's lurching over him. That's what I'm saying. And this isn't even that. This is Torrhen Stark kneeling to Aegon Conqueror. Totally different moment, right? And I know, shout out to North Must Remember, I know he's mentioned before, I think there was a question where he said, do I think, or someone on my Patreon mentioned, I think it was him, I'm going to give him credit, but if I'm wrong, please correct me, where he mentioned how the reason why, or I think this is just an idea floating around, rather. The reason why Torrance knelt is because he knew that, Ice and Fire needed to happen, and that ultimately the Targaryen had to be sitting on the Iron Throne to defeat Winter, right? Long night, White Walkers. I can't wait for that to be more explored for the TV show, because that's one of the benefits about the TV show is we'll get definitive stuff. Like, it's cool to have a definitive answer to something, because what makes the book so cool is that there isn't any definitive answers, and you get to put caps on things for your own head, especially since there haven't been a book in 10 years, right? But you kind of get to make that decision yourself and be creative about it. Like when you're reading it, specifically, I give each character my own crazy voice, and then when I'm listening to it, I get to listen to each character have its own crazy voice, right? But anyway, she says, do you think that we will ever get Aegon's conquest on screen? In short, because I kind of mentioned Aegon's conquest a little bit just then, and it's not their fault. They just come up with ideas because I say please submit topics, and I'm gonna answer every single one. Sorry, I forgot which part I was at. Aegon's conquest on screen. I would love to see it. If we had to get something more specific that wouldn't be Aegon's conquest, even though we haven't really seen anything like that, because this would be a raw Westeros. Like, yes, in short, to answer your question, Anna, I would love to see it. But this would be like a raw Westeros in the sense that we get to see Westerosi culture, right? 300 years in the past, which doesn't sound like a lot, but, House of the Dragon being mostly... The story now is going to be taken in 130 AC, and then it kind of starts in 101 AC, right? It's 100 years post-Aegon, so it looks totally different. It looks exactly like the Westeros we know it in the main series, except for way more opulent. The realm hasn't been ravaged by a great war for the most part. The only thing that happened with the Sons of the Dragon, Aegon the Conqueror, Maegor the Cruel, is that Maegor the Cruel had an internal conflict with his nephew, and he stole his crown and stuff, and it was very small. The Dance of the Dragons is huge. That's what wipes out most of the dragons, the Targaryens and stuff. But ultimately, seeing the realm and what the showrunner would have to be George himself, or Ryan Condal, obviously working with George depthfully, and bring me on. I've got good ideas. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, Westeros would have to the culture. So you have raw Andal society. You have dudes like Argilac the Defiant. You have dudes like, obviously, everybody loves to talk about this dude. You have Harren the Black, right? He's the guy whose grandfather was an Ironborn member, and he built Harrenhal. And we all know how special Harrenhal is. It's the biggest castle in all of Westeros. not in the main storyline, but initially when it was built, it took so long and it consumed so much from the land that 90% of Westeros hated Harren the Black, but he also had this sick reputation where nobody fucked with him, and for the most part, not that many people crossed him, right? So not that many people fucked with him, not that many people had enough of a problem with him where they would cause open war. They just respected the fact, they hated him, but they respected the fact that he had this reputation, crazy reputation where nobody messed with him, right? That's why he was able to do what he did. But to note, the main reason why he had this strong claim is because he knew that it's mentioned when Harren was building Harrenhal, he knew that his grandfather was an Ironborn man, and that's why I just mentioned that. That made him realize that he doesn't have that strong of a claim to the Ironborn themselves. He knows he's Ironborn, but he'll focus on the Riverlands and building Harrenhal because conquesting the Iron Islands wouldn't allow him to build Harrenhal, kind of, right? So that's the idea that I got personally from reading that, right? If I'm remembering it correctly, which I could be remembering it wrong. There's always a chance of that, you know? So this dude would be an amazing character to see on the Aegon show. Like, if we got Aegon the Conquest. Also, we've got really dope people like, you know, I mean, I guess, or he's Baratheon, right? Aegon's half-brother, who's literally a Baratheon that is said to be, well, the first Baratheon, obviously, but he's said to be a bastard, half-brother of Aegon. So you get to see, you know, Rhaenys is half Baratheon almost, right? But yeah, so, like, in the books, Rhaenys looks really cool because she's black hair, and then she's got this one silver streak of Targaryen hair, and it looks awesome, right? Later on in life, though, I'm not mistaken, the book description explains that most of her hair, by the time she dies, isn't most of her hair already gray, though? So that's probably why the show did that. But it would have been cool to still see her, because we saw her really young at the beginning of the show. It would have been cool to see her black. It would have been, like, I guess if it was solely up to Ryan and George, her hair would have been, and this is just a guess, her hair probably would have been black, but the people maybe that were more in charge of, like, the looks of the show or the aesthetics, I don't know. Maybe it just got changed because it would be confusing. They probably figured it would be confusing to the average show watcher who's never read Fire and Blood, which I respect, because some people genuinely won't read Fire and Blood because they don't want to know any spoilers about the show. You gotta respect that, right? But it's also said that, like, you know, she looks a certain way, so that's kind of what we expect to see on screen. But so it would be cool to get characters like Orys Baratheon, right, if we had an Aegon the Conquest show. And the second part of your question was, what do you think was written to Aegon that ended the Dornish War? Now, I think this has been submitted to me before, right? Or either that or I've made it a topic, and I'm just going to summarize the answer that I gave there because I can't really think of anything better, given the context that we have. Maybe if we get Fire and Blood Part 2, and there's some things that happen with Dorne that can involve a storyline where we find out something that was written as a copy. Like, most people, I think, accept the idea, which is kind of tinfoily, but the idea that Rhaenys was still alive in 10 AC after she supposedly died in Hellholt, where Hellholt is this city it's hot. Everything's desert-like down there, but ultimately her dragon Meraxes dies because it takes a bolt in the eye, right? So, the idea is that Rhaenys died on impact, right? Rhaenys died on impact. Aegon the Conqueror's wife, not Rhaenys on House of the Dragon. So Aegon the Conqueror's wife supposedly died, right? But what could have been written on the note is that, no, as a matter of fact, his wife was still kept alive, right? And that the Yellow Toad of Dorne's son was willing to end her life if he ended Daenerys's. If he ended Rhaenys' poison, right? It's really weird because it just mentions that after Aegon reads the note, whatever's written on it, he stops the war with Dorne, and then he flies to Dragonstone, and then comes back the day later, and he's like, okay, I'm done with the Dorne thing, right? Like, ultimately, the prince who takes over after it's either his mother or his grandmother, the Yellow Toad of Dorne, right? After he takes over, he sends his one daughter, right? And in Dorne, they respect the Rhoynar culture. And in Rhoynar culture, they're kind of like Egyptians, where there's been a few pharaohs, like, I can't remember the pharaoh's name, but that just shows you how lame he was. Nefertiti, they ruled together, right? In ancient Egypt. And that's kind of what the Rhoynar do. So the Dornish adopted that culture because they were ultimately kind of semi-invaded, but there was a big alliance between House Martell and Nymeria Martell with the Rhoynar, right? So the Rhoynar are fleeing from the Valyrian freehold and all of the terrible things that the Dragon Lords are doing, right, over in Essos. So they go to Dorne, they make an alliance, and then Aegon's fighting them. And they have, it's not as primogeniture as a society, and princesses in Dorne can say things. So the fact that the Prince of Dorne sends his daughter to King's Landing and feels safe in the fact that she won't be harmed by Aegon or whatever, even though she could very well, like Aegon is advised to kill her by Orys Baratheon. But ultimately, whatever's written on that note makes Aegon fly to Dragonstone, and then he immediately ends the war after that. So it's got to be something crazy like Rhaenys being alive. Rhaenys being alive and being tortured that whole time. That's pretty much it. It's mentioned in Fire and Blood and War of Ice and Fire. I don't think it's mentioned in War of Ice and Fire. It's mentioned in Fire and Blood. Fire and Blood goes into way more detail about Aegon's conquest and things like that. It's mentioned that the letter could be enchanted or something like that. Like she might have like written it in Rhaenys' blood, which is possible. You know, this is fantasy. It just makes more sense in my opinion that he's told something like Rhaenys is alive. Although, if it was enchanted, it could have not necessarily been enchanted, but just written in Rhaenys' blood and something about the bond that he has with Rhaenys. Because Rhaenys is the one sister that he loves, right, the most. Like, he marries Visenya for a duty. That's his older sister, so he has to marry her. But then he also marries Rhaenys because he loves her. So, and it's actually unorthodox for a Targaryen to do that. Like, Targaryens have done that, but usually it's the sorcerer priest Targaryens, ones who haven't claimed a dragon, per se, and more so focus on blood magic. Those are usually the ones who claim dragons, right? So yeah, I see somebody just tweeted like goal Charles Montgomery, like goal 420 plus 11. Like goal is anybody watching? I've been streaming for almost 4 hours now. I can't believe I haven't streamed this long since Game of Thrones season 8 was on, and I don't even know if I streamed that long then. This is crazy. I'm gonna be wrapping this up soon, but I do have to get through. I think I have one more patron question, or this might be the last one actually. Do you think that we will ever get Aegon's conquest on screen? Did that one from Anna. What do you think of the war? So yeah, that was the last one I just ended. I think it was, like I said, Rhaenys kept alive. Or if it was enchanted, it was just not necessarily enchanted, but Aegon, just something deep down in him knew the psychic connection that he had with Rhaenys, that was her blood, right? Or maybe it was written in her handwriting, and he knows her handwriting, right? Because he loves her. Maybe it was a picture she drew or something. So he's like, I'll kill her if you end the war, right? At the Prince of Dorne, that's the Yellow Toad's son, and also his daughter is the one who's sent as an envoy, which is why Aegon ultimately doesn't kill her, is because she's an envoy. And then your last question was, Aegon's last war is said no one knows what was written but Aegon. Oh, you're just following up to thoughts on that. So thank you for submitting that. Yeah, that's the last time that he conquers Dorne. Thank you for submitting that, AnaaaRodarte. Let's see if you were still in the chat here. I think you were watching from before, so I don't want to make seem like I'm hounding on you for not watching the whole time or something. I think that was the last one. All right. Well, I'm about to get out of here. Let me double check. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There was the one from what's her name? But wait a second. Okay. I want to just stretch to screen. Come on, bro. All right, there we go. It's a really silly question. I'm just kidding. There's no such thing as a dumb question, except for this one. Just kidding. User mixed das tiny Phillips 024 said, do you think blood magic and fire magic can bring back a dragon? Right, and I did make a thumbnail, but I'm not going to show that because they've been extremely rude to me in the chat, which is weird because I thought you were a fan. You said that, a fan of mine, right? Do you think blood magic, I'm seeing if I get this right. Do you think blood magic and fire magic can bring back a dragon? All right, let me just show you this picture of a Viserion. What kind of question is that? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, like, did you watch Game of Thrones season 7? Viserion came back, so on the TV show they proved that it's not blood magic or fire and blood magic per se. It's the old magic, like being an ice zombie. You live forever. They can bring back the dead. That's the type of magic I think that's strong enough, is what the show was trying to say. It's strong enough to bring back a dragon. But also, you have the magic of Allure being able to bring back people, and also the magic of Allure being able to create beings that can go kill people. So the magic is balanced. The system is balanced. You have undead, but when they come back to life, that's what we're going to find out with Jon Snow. He'll probably die a few more times, or one more time before the story's over, and maybe he'll lose his head, and then it'll just be on ice, and he'll be able to come back, but he'll be basically nothing. He'll just be like a White Walker, right? Because remember, Arya asked, can you bring back? She does ask in the books. She asked that to Beric Dondarrion. She says, yo, my mans, can Thoros of Myr bring back a dude without a hand? Arya suddenly becomes a Brooklyn character. I swear to God, Roy de Treese. If you don't believe me, get the audiobooks. Roy de Treese goes, hey, yo, my mans. And he's playing Arya, right? And he's like, hey, yo, my mans, can you bring back my daddy, Ned Stark? But no. To answer your question, though, yes, I think it was old god magic. So not fire and blood magic, not blood magic, but old god magic. It's strong enough to bring back something like a dragon. All right. I think... that goddamn... what is it? All right, well, yeah, I'm going to, I think this is a good point to wrap. That actually was the last question that I had, so that was a good point to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank everybody. Let's see. Oh, am I still? Okay, I just went back on YouTube. I was making sure I didn't end the stream yet. All right. So, yeah. All right, yeah, it's time to go. I was listening because I keep hearing them I'm trying to see if they're laughing or if they're crying. But yeah, probably it's crime. All right, thank you all so much for watching. This has been a crazy long stream. We almost made it to 4 hours, but I think this is pretty long. What is it? Almost, yeah. So 3 hours 46 minutes. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Mark. Please slap a like on this if you're watching this after the fact. Also, consider joining my Patreon. But if you can't,